All right, so listen, ladies who are watching this episode, I brought on Tina here to make sure that we had the female perspective, but we're going to go into this question, this age-old question about why women complain about there being no good guys left while they summarily friend zone all of the good guys. And we're going to ask the age-old question, why do nice guys finish last? And honestly, I might even suggest in this that maybe nice guys deserve to finish last.
Really?
Maybe that's the thing. We're gonna analyze all of that today, and we're gonna actually make some differentiation between what do women really want, why do certain guys get put in the friend zone, and what does it take to actually be a good man. So we're gonna discuss all of that and more on this episode of Making the Argument, brought to you by Good Ranchers.
I'm telling you, I am excited about today's episode because I could have used an episode on this topic while I was growing up, probably through like middle school, high school. So I think there's going to be a lot of value presented to some younger guys from this episode. And I'm also excited to see what conversations take place in our community chat.
Oh, I think the community chat's going to get interesting on this one.
Speaking of the chat, the YouTube chat, Christian Hines in the house. Hello, Master Hines.
Yes, let's all. We got to do our introductions. As always, I'm your host, Nick Freitas. With me, my beautiful bride, Tina, Queen of the Bees.
Hello, everyone.
Not with us today because the professor, Master Hines, has reinvaded Great Britain to give them the old what for. Let's go ahead and can we bring up the picture real quick?
It's up.
There's Christian getting his master's.
He's with us online today, but he's not with us in person. But look at this picture. Dude, that's... Ladies.
Yeah, Nick said he looks like Moriarty.
I do. You do. This does give it off a Professor Moriarty.
Did you go to villain school and get your master's in villainry? Master of Doom.
I'm just saying right now, I think, okay, again, we're going to let everybody in the chat. We've been fighting for like months now to figure out like what is the best name. We got Queen of the Bees. We got the good Hamilton. But what is the best name for Christian? And there's been plenty of solutions offered. Master of Doom, Master Hines, now that he does have his master's degree, the Professor of Doom, the mostly benevolent warlord, like all of these things. But anyways, we're sad he can't be here today, but we're both very happy for
proud of him.
Very proud.
He put
very
in
proud
so
of him.
much work to
He
this.
did. He worked his butt off. He worked really hard. Did a great job.
He even put off work, our work for this.
I will say he doubled down on all of it, did a great job, and we are so proud. Also, you're fired because I can't believe you would give into the higher ed industrial complex. So as proud of you as we are, we're also so horribly disappointed. No, we love you, brother. Have a great time over there. Congratulations. Well earned. And we look forward to having you back. And then, of course, we have our producer of producers, the good Hamilton, the one that doesn't like central baking. How you doing?
Let's do this.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So we're gonna start off with something a little bit funny. The language is bleeped out. But there was a bit of a joke that we came across that was funny, and this was from Ryan Long. And Ryan Long is a comedian that has he has a reputation for going after all of like the politically incorrect stuff you possibly could.
He does all the anti-woke comedy.
Oh my God, it's hysterical. It really, again, I can't always recommend the language. We always try to keep things, we try to keep things family friendly, except when I was gone and then all of a sudden, but this is kind of a funny thing we just wanted to show because it's Ryan Long comedy and he's talking about what a girl says her standards is versus the guy she actually dates. So let's go ahead and throw this up real quick.
What I look for in a guy is someone who makes like $500,000 a year, about 6 feet tall, compassionate, strong, but soft, likes to spend time with me.
Yeah, I'm unemployed right now. I got a couple Deweys, so if you want me to drive, you got to blow into the breathalyzer because I tied a few on earlier, assuming you got a whip.
Mature, and a great relationship with his mom is a must.
Mom's a fucking bitch. I don't even really like living her. We got in a huge scuffle the other day. I almost got physical because she caught me stealing her jewelry after I was pissed at her because she wouldn't let me use her picture to start another Uber Eats profile after I got banned from eating someone's food and I wanted to take another crack at it because I already stole a bike.
Honest. He's definitely got to be clean. That's a non-negotiable.
I actually got little man picking up some toilet paper from school for me right now. Do you think you could drive me there after this? Also, you might have to pop in there and grab it just because I can't really show face there right now. Ex is still a little perturbed with me because I owe her a couple G's and she needs that for her tuition.
Someone who likes to travel.
Yeah, I know. She asked me to get a suit for some destination funeral that's like an hour out of town, which I did, but then the security tag had a mishap and it got a little messy, so she might have to just go dolo on this one.
Willing to cook and just sort of spoil me.
Yeah, I like to treat my bitch. I take her to Ruby Tuesdays. We probably have to go to one of the ones out of state though, because some of the local ones I've dined and dashed too much at, so they're a little bit on to me.
A man with integrity.
Babe, could you drop by my mom's place and pick up a half quarter from there? Yeah, Dave's plug's gonna come by and pick it up in like the next half hour.
You want me to sell drugs for you?
It's just under the mattress on the floor. Don't take any though.
No, last time I went to your house, your mom tried to fight me.
Okay. All right. So again, we realize it's a bit of a caricature, but it is kind of funny.
Is it really though? Like, I can't tell you how many girls, you'll see there's the friend that's almost, how there's sort of the designated mom friend amongst women. There's the designated mom friend. She's the one that takes care of everybody else and makes sure that they're all, not in any danger anytime they go out. Well,
that's the sober friend in the group,
right? And so usually that's the friend that's got her head on straight, and she's the one that's telling her friends who are just constantly just having guy problems. Their relationships never last, and there's always some kind of cheating that happens or whatever, some dude, and the friend's always giving advice like, hey, you need to maybe not go for these kind of guys and all of that, and inevitably another guy pops up and it's like, oh, but he's so different. And then same cycle all over again. And they're garbage. These are like trash dudes that these girls are going for. But it's because, and I'll tell you, it's because they're super confident and they're willing to get out there and like actually put themselves forward and kind of act like they don't care whether you say yes or no. Like they come on real strong.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, then forget you. And then it makes the girl want them. It's the weirdest thing. And I don't know if it's daddy issues or if feminism has like broken women or what has happened, but it seems to be a cycle a lot of these gals go through and they're never listening to their friend that knows what's up.
Yeah, but there's
because the friend that knows what's up always finds the good guy and stays with him. It's the gals. The gals that won't do that won't take the advice, but they want to sit there and boo-hoo on their friend's shoulder.
Okay, well let's look at this. So let's go to this next article because I looked this up and I thought it was really interesting. It was why do girls like bad boys? So scroll all the way up to the top here. All right, so they've got multiple reasons here. Yeah, top 12 reasons why girls choose bad boys. All right, so we're going to go through this real quick. Scroll down a little bit because some of this you already mentioned, but bad boys are usually assertive. All right, so a bad boy isn't afraid to speak his mind, which most girls find sexy. While nice guys try to please everyone, bad boys don't care what other people think. They pride themselves on being honest and upfront, which increases their attractiveness. Being authentic is more appealing than being overly nice, and girls appreciate when guys are unapologetically themselves. True? Wait, Tina, true, false?
I would say, yeah.
Okay, number 2, they're dangerously exciting. Dating a bad boy is an adrenaline rush. They're mysterious, adventurous, and more likely to engage in risky behavior. It's not surprising when they end up in sticky situations, but that makes them even more intriguing to some girls, especially if they're looking for someone to spice up their life. Wait, don't just calm down there. Calm down there, Hamilton. All right, go ahead. What do you think?
Yeah, all I can do is say that's probably true, and I don't know. To me, I look at some of this and go, there's something lacking in the girl if she thinks that that's what she needs. And I kind of almost, I wonder, is Hollywood to blame for this? Because there's always that movie sort of plot line where it's like, he was the bad boy, but she tamed him.
Yeah.
And he turned away from those ways because she was what he really needed. And so women seem to think that they are the answer.
Yeah. For
this is how she's going to tame this man.
Well, and can we
she's going to be the reason he settles down. And it's like, no. And so I feel like it's been a false bill of goods sold to women.
I think there's actually a bit of a false bill of goods, but I think there's also an element of truth. And I think the element of truth is that this whole idea that, men civilize the wilderness and women civilize men. I think there's truth to that. If you look at let's look at the West.
Yeah, but the man has to have honor for that.
No, I get that. I'm not suggesting otherwise, but I am saying that this is the problem with most of this stuff is that underlying all the bad decisions, there is something elemental there that can be correct, The problem is when it has a negative manifestation instead of a positive manifestation. So a guy that is willing to be maybe spontaneous or exciting, that might be something that you really appreciate, especially if this is like an opposites attract sort of thing where, you know, it makes a girl feel special or a little bit of excitement because otherwise that's just not an element of her life. But the question is what sort of things does he do in order to bring that excitement? Is it dangerous and counterproductive and you know, everything else? Or is it something that's exciting but can also be positive? So I think there's an element there of a woman saying, I'm going to civilize that guy, which can be true. It's just you're not, if the guy is just a horrible human being, you ain't fixing
that's
that.
true. And so there's going to be like a big spectrum here. So you're going to have the guys that'll do like dangerous things like, oh, they're really an adrenaline junkie. And so they go like cliff, you know, diving and they jump out of airplanes and they do all this like outdoorsy guy stuff. There's that kind of danger. And then there's legal danger where they
let's
they
rob
might,
this liquor store.
Yeah, they might get in a fight later on and she might be used as a human shield.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that the desire for adventure exists. That does. And women like the idea of being pulled out of whatever predicament they're in, especially if they're not liking their situation right now.
Sure.
They want to be pulled out of that into something exciting.
Yeah.
And so sometimes these guys, what they're offering is excitement, and she hasn't realized yet how exciting it's going to get. And a lot of times it's scary.
Theodore Dalrymple, who again, his real name is like Dr. Anthony Daniels, who was I want to say sociologist over in Great Britain. I've talked about him before. His book, Life at the Bottom, is excellent, but he talks a lot about, he will have female patients that are either through the, you know, prison system or ones that have been victims of domestic abuse or whatever it is. And one of the things that he will ask them is, if your boyfriend walked through the door right now, how long would it take me to know that he was a bad guy? And he goes, the answer I usually get is, you'd know instantly. To which he usually responds, he's like, okay, then presumably you know this as well. So why is it? And he goes, it's not as if they haven't had relatively stable men in their lives. The problem is that the stable men don't provide the element of excitement they're looking for. And so they choose something else. But
and again, there is a wide spectrum because there's a reason why like serial killers and men who've killed their wives and men who've killed their families and all that, they all end up with these creepy, groupie women writing them letters and like wanting to get married and bring them conjugal visits and all this. Like there is a spectrum of really deranged women, and then there's a spectrum of deranged men, and it's a wide swath. And you've just got to try to find your vein and go there.
Well, again, there's I look at the whole idea, like Brian was just talking about this in the chat as well. There are things that are, if the fundamentals are good, then there's going to be elements that, you know, you can be civilized within the confines of a relationship or things like that. If the fundamentals are good, if the fundamentals are bad, then that's probably not someone you should try to invest a lot of time into to fix, at least in a committed relationship.
All right, I got a question.
Yeah.
Last time Lily was on the show, I asked her if it was true or not that women look for qualities in a man which help them determine how confident they are in the long-term relationship and the stability of that. And Lily gave a great answer to what those qualities were that she looked for in her future husband. But this seems counterintuitive to that.
Yeah, it does, because everybody's been fed this line in the past many, many decades now that this certain portion of your life is meant to be adventurous and fun, and you should go test everything out. And so these women aren't looking to settle down just yet. In fact, they kind of like the idea of finding this guy that they think is dangerous or whatever, and somehow she waves a magic wand and he's just so enthralled with her that he's willing to go to the ends of the earth and turn his back on any of the bad things.
And then she gets bored of him and leaves.
Right, but I will say that like I married a soldier, right? Like Nick's not a bad boy, but he is a tough guy. Yeah. And so I think sometimes women get mixed up with what they really want. I think
let's not jump too far ahead right now, because we got it. We still got like
I know, but I was just going to
say
there was a time when Nick was going to get out of the military, and he's like, I don't know, maybe I'll be like a real estate agent or something. Nothing against real estate agents, you guys. But my husband was a gosh dang Green Beret jumping out of airplanes and like fighting in wars. And he's like, maybe I'll sell real estate. And I'm like, Really?
Wow, babe. Nice to know if I would have had to
wasn't
make
gonna
that.
leave
Oh,
you.
no. It's nice to know that if I would have made that decision, like all the spice would have been gone.
You're gonna do that, but are you gonna do anything else that's like kind of cool?
Oh gosh, dang. You know what? I'm going to come up with the equivalent and on that. Like, oh, so you're just going to do this? All right. Number 3, they make girls feel protected. Now, this one, I think this is one of those elements where there's something there, right? Bad boys stand up for their partners no matter what. Most bad boys are eager to engage in confrontation, especially if it involves their partner. Whether it's an inappropriate comment, look, or touch, a bad boy is always ready to protect his partner from harm and let the perpetrator know they messed up. I think this, stop moving the screen, Hamilton.
It's Negan.
Oh my gosh.
Why all these women went for Negan in that zombie.
Well, no, the
show.
reason why they went for Negan in the zombie show is because he mercilessly ruled over his little group and
That's
forced
true.
them. No, but the whole idea of making the girls feel protected, right? This is something where we're going to get into this a little bit later on the whole difference between nice guys and other options for women, right? Is if you're nice but you don't make your girl feel safe, well then there's something significantly lacking there, and that's problematic. By the same token, you will see this where the bad boy, which differentiates the bad boy from the good man, is the bad boy will make her feel safe until he doesn't,
Right.
because he's now the source of violence, and you will see women try to come up with excuses for, well, it was my fault, I did this, I said this, and all of a sudden it becomes Stockholm syndrome. Go ahead and scroll down. They're seen as more masculine. Now, here's what I love about this. This is WikiHow, right? It's not like this is, some ultra manosphere, red pill conservative group. This is just a reality, is that women want masculine men and super nice, touchy-feely, in touch with their emotion, high EQ men, for some reason, right? The very thing that feminists claim to want, once they get it, they cheat on that guy for the dude that's more masculine.
I'm convinced that women want that in their imagination, and that's pretty much where they want him to stay, is up there in the imagination. They will compare every man to that thing in their imagination, but when they find that guy that actually fits that's not what they want. They want the guy that's tough and scary to other people so that she can,
Now here's what's interesting. All right, listen to this. I love the way WikiHow is describing this. Bad boys exude confidence and dominance, increasing their appeal. Whether it's strength, courage, or leadership skills, bad boys encompass most, if not all, of the typical masculine qualities. Golly gee willikers.
Gee.
I was told those were toxic.
So perhaps we should be masculine again. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. It's amazing how when they're moving outside of the realm of this political woke garbage and they're actually just getting down to, okay, well, let's explain the reality as we actually find it, not as we pretend it exists in the sociology department at Berkeley. All of a sudden, the whole advice and the reasoning changes. And when people read this, it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Scroll down. All right, so that's number 4. 5. Girls may enjoy chasing bad boys. You don't say. Some bad boys send confusing signals, leaving girls wanting more. While there's nothing wrong with dating a nice guy, it can get boring and predictable. A bad boy gives a girl attention 1 minute, then takes it away the next, and this behavior can intensify her feelings for him.
And so all these women, then they go on TikTok and make videos about how they dated a narcissist
Yeah.
and how you deal with narcissists. It's like, well, you went and you chose a freaking narcissist.
Yeah. Well, and this is also kind of an interesting question with respect to how things like popularity or competition affects affection, right? So obviously women want to be desired, right? And if a lot of guys are giving a girl attention, then I would imagine in her mind it's like, that's all secured.
Yeah.
But why isn't that guy paying attention? Why isn't that guy paying attention? And look, I say this as somebody that I got friend zoned in high school. All right. So you're not alone, but I got friend zoned in high school. And part of it was because I looked at it as like, well, my job is to be chivalrous and nice and honest and all this other stuff. And then I realized my senior year, it's like, yeah, maybe I should just back off the being nice a little bit. Not like fundamentally bad, but just back off the niceness a little bit, because it becomes, you're either a sure thing or you get walked on because you think you're being chivalrous when in reality you're just getting treated poorly. Go ahead and scroll down. Number 6, they're portrayed as attractive in the media. Yeah, that's true. I think, I think some of this, there's actually some decent biological reasons why, the whole bad boy image or whatnot. But I think also within the media, the bad boy is often treated as the guy that he's good at heart, or he's good on some fundamental level, but he's got either a dark past
She just has to get in there and ignite that light inside of him in order to make all the badness go away. And then she can convert him into that little ideal in her head.
Yeah.
But he has to keep all the bad, like enough badness to where he's fun and cool.
Yeah.
I think what it is it's like chemically,
grease.
like women, I think maybe our brains are made in such a way to be attracted to the strong man.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the bad guy appears to be the strong man, especially in a civilized society.
Yes.
And so since society is so civil and all of these men have fallen right in line and they all consider themselves feminists now and everything else, women are like, well, all these dudes are emasculated.
There was a really interesting conversation between Jordan Peterson and Gad. I think his name was Gad. I can't remember, but he's a again. I think he's a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I can't remember, but he was talking about this whole concept of the term is bad, but it was the sneaky, F word, right? And the whole idea was, he goes, no, I don't mean this as like a pejorative term. It's actually describing something that we see going on within biology. And that is when you have the alpha, which all the women like, right? The question becomes, they were analyzing, I think it was chimps.
It was these chimps.
They were analyzing chimps, and they thought these chimps were either underdeveloped or they thought they were young males at first, because they just hadn't developed. And what they found out is, no, that was a fully developed male. The difference was that they could not compete with the alpha. And so the way that they were able to get access to,
is
right,
through sneaky rape.
Is through, and not just that, but through basically blending in with the females in the bunch and not drawing too much attention from the alphas. And they were able to get like again, in the animal kingdom, it's not like they were taking them out to dinner or braiding their hair for them.
In the animal kingdom, it's pretty much all rape.
Yeah, but what was interesting about it was the idea that it was almost like the sympathy, the sympathy sex.
Yeah, except it's kind of not. It's like basically they would display the aggressive like force thing to the females.
Yeah, what I think's interesting,
it wasn't like they were giving him like pity sex.
No, yeah, I know, because it's the animal kingdom. But what I'm saying is that when we now apply this over to humans, I've had buddies of mine that were absolutely the sort of like alpha male types, and they used to think it was something of a game to go after like very progressive women, because they believed that they were easy to get in bed and they were very easy to manipulate. Because they knew what to say. They were, and again, I'm not saying this is true of all progressive women or anything like that. I'm just saying.
No, but there's a reason Parks and Rec did that. Everybody went out and like everybody's trying for this woman, and she's like this hardcore feminist.
Yeah.
And then Ron Swanson's just totally disregarding her and ignoring her the whole time. And then, she totally says no to this one guy that's all in
Rob
tune.
Lowe's character.
Rob Lowe's, he's all in tune with his feelings. But then she tells.
Well, it was funny because
Ron, like, you want to get out of here?
Right, yeah, it's funny because she's like a women's studies professor, and they're all at dinner because Andy just passed her class, which was pass fail, right? Typical. And then Rob Lowe's sitting there, and he's brought his own dressing that he made organically from home, and he's talking about,
and he's so kind,
feelings and Cincinnati, and he's a good-looking guy, and he's in shape, and the whole deal. And he's like, "Hey, would you like want to get coffee sometime?" She's like, "I just got out of a really rough relation." Oh, I totally respect that. At the same time, Ron Swanson just ordered his third steak. Right? So Rob Lowe gets up and leaves, and she immediately looks at Ron and goes, "So you want to get out of here?"
Yeah. So, but that's the thing is, this would not be a stereotype that the entertainment industry exploits.
No.
If it didn't sort of exist in real life. I have watched women go shooting that are so scared of guns.
Yeah.
And I've watched them go and see their guy shooting a gun. And just, you could just see something in her face just changed
Let's get outta
watching
here.
him handle that gun. And it was like palpable. Nick and I are like, do they need like some space? So, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh
there's
no,
something to
we
it.
had some. I won't name them, but they know who they are. We have some really good friends where they went out to a trip on Wyoming, and he came out wearing a cowboy hat and tipped his hat at his wife, and she looked at him and went like, "Oh."
It's very, very
All
funny.
right, so let's go to. All right, so they're portrayed as attractive in the media. Now, I will say this: one of the big problems with this is, again, the way the media attracts the bad boy is it's the idea that the bad boy is always easily reformed, and that's obviously not the case in reality. Go ahead and scroll down. Bad boys can inspire girls to speak their mind. Many girls are taught to always be nice, which can be extremely frustrating at times. If a girl doesn't feel seen or heard by others, she might look for a guy who makes her feel validated. A bad boy is the definition of a free spirit, and he can encourage his partner to embrace her emotions and unlock her wild side.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, especially if she feels really repressed in whatever like role she has found herself in, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Depending on it. I mean, did she come from like a small town where like she just wanted to always get away or get out of there? Boy, that sounds like a Hallmark movie, doesn't it?
Yeah. All right. Bad boys may increase a girl's self-esteem. Okay, I want to delve into this one a little bit more.
Temporarily.
Being with a bad boy may make a girl feel more desirable. Since bad boys are perceived as unattainable, landing one can be a major source of validation. Some girls use bad boys to confirm their physical attractiveness or sexual appeal, especially if they have low self-esteem. This is one where we get into the whole idea of women competing with one another. And we see this a lot. And this has been brought up before. When you ask men what they want out of, let me reword this. A lot of times what women complain about as pressure from men is actually pressure from other women. And so when you look at, these unattainable beauty standards or this or that or whatnot, it's like, okay, when was the last time a guy said you looked fat in that? Or when was the last time a guy said, why don't you have more lip filler? Or when was the last time a guy, and a lot of guys have been pointing out that, look, it's not that we don't appreciate a good looking dress or someone that puts themselves, it's not like we don't appreciate that, but there's a lot of things that women seem to do that seem to be more for other women, in the sense that they're competing with those women, or they're trying to avoid censure or criticism from other women, as opposed to, some sort of unrealistic demand that has been put on them by the men in their lives.
That's true, but men also do the same thing on their side.
Yes.
They're always competing with other men. Women are competing with other women,
Yeah.
even if they say they're not. And I mean, there is this challenge focus that women sometimes can have. I mean, it's, to me, the idea of this going for the bad boy, that's the challenge. There's a challenge there. It's a challenge to domesticate him. But then there's other challenges women go for too. Women, there are whole swaths of women that go after married men. And the reason they go after married men is because they see it as a challenge. He's already desirable enough for another woman to be married to him, so he must be one of the good ones, and maybe she could pull him away. And there are women that just straight up do not have a problem with going after married men, and it's a challenge. It's a conquest situation. And so men aren't the only ones who view things with like sort of a conquest ethic.
Yeah.
Women do too. And this idea that we don't, and this idea that women are all good and pure and wonderful is such a farce. I have seen very, very, very toxic behavior in some, areas of femininity, of females,
Yeah, well, and I think the other side too is the whole increase of girls' self-esteem. What's interesting about that is that I do think both men and women obviously get a sense of a sense of like security and, for lack of a better word, pride with respect to their wife or their husband or whatever it may be. What I also think is interesting is when you also look at infidelity. When you look at infidelity within marriages, a lot of it is not rooted so much in like the idea, I think, that Hollywood portrays sometimes, this idea that when infidelity takes place in marriage, it's because somebody was just so much more attractive or so much more appealing, when in reality, a lot of times it's more of an appeal to their self-esteem. So if they're feeling like they're not desired, and now all of a sudden they are desired in this other area, that's far more likely to trigger an infidelity, just statistically speaking, than somebody was just really good looking. And so it is
kind of interesting when you talk to I've known some women in the past who got cheated on by their spouses and all. And you look at the woman, they'll show you who they cheated with, and you're going, this woman is not even as pretty as the wife.
Yeah.
What happened? What? So it's not about looks. Sometimes it's about what makes the man's self-esteem feel boosted.
Yeah. All right, next one. Number 9. Dating bad boys can boost a girl's reputation. Well, this kind of goes into what we were talking before, is that some of this is not about the actual individual themselves, the guy itself. It's about the status with other girls. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and scroll down. Girls may choose bad boys if they're looking for a fling. This is one. All right. I will say that I think this is the one that frustrates guys the most. And I'll tell you why. It's because if a guy really, let's not even say the whole nice guy characters, right? Because we're going to get into the whole difference between nice guy and good man, and what's the difference between these two things and how they behave in different situations. We're going to go point by point on all of that. But this is the one, and this is one I would just tell, I would tell both men and women. If the whole idea, like if you're a man and the whole idea is that you're hooking up with the club girl just for a fling, that is diminishing you. I don't care what the manosphere says. That diminishes you with the sort of woman that you actually want to marry. And that is also true with the women. If it's the one thing where it's like, oh, I'm going to hook up with the the bad boy, or now they call them the F boys and everything else. I'm going to hook up with that guy just for fun and a fling, but nothing serious. And then you're going to now present yourself to the guy that you actually think is the pinnacle of what you want. You are diminished as a result of all those hookups. And it's also true for guys too. Like I'm tired of this whole idea that it may affect the dynamic differently culturally, but ultimately if you really want a woman, like the pinnacle of what you expect out of a wife, she is not going to appreciate the fact that you decided to hook up with a bunch of, club girls before you decided to, quote, settle down with her.
Yeah.
And that's a part of this narrative that I absolutely cannot stand. And we did a video on this a while back on getting married young, where I said one of the dumbest things that modern culture tells us is you're supposed to go out and experiment and figure out what you like. And one of the dumbest statements I've ever heard is, well, determine if you're sexually compatible. That is so idiotic.
Oh, you always hear people go, you wouldn't go and buy a car without test driving it first, would you? And I'm just going, this is not the same thing. It is just not.
No, it's not. And anyway, there's a lot of bad jokes we can say with that. But I just want to say, like, this is part of the thing where, I'm not saying people need to get married young or anything like that, but I do think it's proper for people to understand that there's actually something really important that goes on with respect to actually identifying someone that you want to have a relationship with. And if you packed in your early 20s with nothing more than a bunch of, sexual trysts and conquests, well, then understand that does diminish you toward the ideal of what you might actually want. And you should understand that. And culture lying to you saying, well, that's just prudish, or no, that's a reality, just like a lot of other things that have become unpopular to talk about, but are real. It's not to say you can't overcome that. It's not to say you can't, but that's baggage, and you are bringing that baggage, male or female, you're bringing that baggage.
It's real. It's very unpopular nowadays for women to be highlighted for like this whole. There's this thing called slut shaming now.
Yeah, and
it's like, oh my gosh, you telling somebody that they can't just go and like be with the entire football team. That's slut shaming. You know what I mean? And there used to be a reason why we viewed that with a certain degree of negativity. It's dangerous behavior. It's indicative of something wrong mentally. There is something emotionally broken that makes you think you need all of that. And yet we're not supposed to look at any of it. It's just casual. It's just gratification. That's all she's doing this for. And it's like, I don't buy that. No. I do not buy that.
Well, and look, if you are seriously looking for compatibility, well, then I've got great news, because Good Ranchers is all about ensuring that you have the proper compatibility with the sort of meat you want, right? So,
oh my gosh,
if you want what? I don't understand why this is controversial. All right, so if you are looking for like an excellent combo pack, there are new deals now with Good Ranchers.
New deal.
All right, Hamilton, do the new deals. What are the new deals?
Okay. So for anybody that subscribes to a new box, they're going to get a free 10-pound ham worth $99. That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's in addition to the steak that you're already purchased.
Yeah, this isn't the ham you're picking up at the local chain store either. Like this is quality ham. You're going to be compatible with this ham.
It's a Good Ranchers Heritage Hams. Excuse me. Let me do that again. Good Ranchers Heritage Hams are pork done the right way. If you miss one for Thanksgiving, you can get it for Christmas.
Yeah, so think about it. You go there right now, you're going to get a discount. If you use promo code Nick, go to goodranchers.com. You're going to use promo code Nick. You're going to get the finest quality rate. This is meat, beef, pork, poultry raised in the United States. We've talked about this before. A lot of stuff that you see at the store that's labeled, American beef, it isn't. It was raised somewhere else. It was shipped to the United States. If they did anything to quote, like enhance the product, now all of a sudden it's an American thing. That is not the case with Good Ranchers. It was raised here. It was grown here by American farmers, and they create a quality product. So take advantage of that discount. Get that ham. Again, you're gonna be compatible with this ham. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it, right?
Don't mess around with that cheap meat.
Don't mess around. Don't go to the store and have a bunch of flings with subpar meat. Right? Go directly to goodranchers.com, use promo code Nick, and get only the quality meat that you're gonna enjoy and be compatible with. All right. Oh, they are so gonna pull their sponsorship. Yeah. All right. Let's look at this one. All right, number 11. Here it is. Finally, we've talked about everything. Some girls want to fix bad boys. All right, so we're gonna talk about this a little bit more later. So don't get into the other side of it. What is the allure with fixing? What do you think is the allure with fixing bad boys?
It's the conquest.
It's the conquest.
It's the challenge. Women want to feel victorious in something, and if they don't want their man coming to them already emasculated, they want to emasculate them themselves, and so that's what this is.
Well, wait, okay, so let me ask you a question on this because I'm curious.
I'm kidding about that. By the way.
I was watching one of those. I was watching one of the Manosphere things where again this club girl was sitting there bragging about like, oh, this guy wants me and this guy wants me and that guy wants me. And finally this dude looks at her and goes, stop telling me how many men are willing to sleep with you. That's easy. Tell me how many men are willing to marry you.
Yep.
And all of a sudden everything went quiet. It was like, whoa, but it was true. So here's my question. For a lot of times, and again, I think this is an inappropriate cultural norm, but for man, the conquest is getting the woman to sleep with him. It feels like sometimes for women, the conquest is turning the bad boy good or something like that. Or getting him to commit to you alone. Okay.
Yeah, and so I think ultimately women that go for the bad guy, if it does, what's weird about some of this is the minute the guy seems like he is changing and softening and doing all of that, she starts to realize that maybe there's some other bad guy out there she could go for.
Yeah.
It is something broken in the emotional, realm somewhere within that woman. I don't think that this is a healthy, like women that go for bad guys. Ultimately, there's something wrong with this woman that she always attracts bad guys. I mean, there are women. There are women that end up like, for instance, now this is not victim blaming.
Yeah.
But there are certain traits in certain women that attract bad men, and that could be abusive men too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll notice there's certain women that like they're always with abusive men. Like they'll leave one abusive relationship and end up in another one,
which is sad.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is because, and I'm convinced that there is something that predatory people can clue into in somebody that's broken. So like she has something that sort of attracts these predators to her, that is broken. And who knows who it was broken by. It could have been a father. It could have been an uncle. It could have been, she might have been sexually abused as a child. There's a lot of reasons why someone would spot that brokenness and want to exploit it. And so I think sometimes, much in the same way, but in a different area, the whole attraction to bad boy is similar. There's something wrong. She is not processing things correctly. Like her desire is to be with a strong, capable, like a man who can protect her. That is going to be like an alpha male. that's what she really wants, but it's like this twisted, skewed version of that because something in her is broken.
Well, and a lot of times too, you see this with an absence of fathers, or with abusive fathers, or with just neglectful fathers, where all of a sudden there's never been they haven't had it modeled for them at all with respect to how they saw their mother being treated, or they saw their mother being treated horrible, and this is just normal. This is what it is. Yeah. Or sometimes it's the desire to escape that particular environment. And
it's also how the father treated the daughter on the way up. Like growing up from young and up, it's how her interaction with the men in her life growing up, and especially the father.
Yeah, we're going to get to the last two questions. We've got some super chats we want to get to here. So let's go ahead and scroll down. 12, some girls seek bad boys to cope with past trauma. So that's essentially just what we talked about. Scroll down some more. Is that it? It was a 12. Okay, 12. All right. So there we go. Those are the 12 reasons that WikiHow came up with why girls are attracted to bad boys. And again, I mean,
they forgot the part where it's like, because they're idiots. Like, come on, be self-aware.
Well, again, we're gonna kind of go after the guys here in a minute too. So let's go ahead and go to the super chats here. Got a couple super chats. So Rod Line, thank you very much. I am an artist, not bad guy, not nice guy, sort of in between. I'm emotional, but not a pushover. My wife found the mysterious artistry type attractive. Well,
mystery that you clued into it. It's the mysterious. Yeah. Women love a good mystery novel, and so they would love a good mysterious man.
Yeah. And you see that and again, the joke is always the guys are very, very superficial with respect to what we want. When we have the capacity to think about nothing, and all we really want is you to show up with food, and there
is a certain amount of like safe mystery, I guess.
Yeah.
In a person who holds inside their brain like all of this creativity and beauty, and they can get it out on canvas, or they can get it out on paper, or whatever avenue, or in song, or whatever type of artistry it is. The idea that all of that beauty lives inside that person's brain and you never see it until they get it out there is some like beautiful mystery to that.
When you'll see it too when a woman kind of serves as almost like a muse too for like an artist, where that artist is enhanced by the relationship that he has with that woman. That's
they're inspired by something with her.
That's an incredibly
it's the
powerful.
Same reason why like Taylor Swift has to have a new boyfriend every 5 minutes so that she can get good material for her next big breakup song stuff.
Okay, JGJ, thank you very much. I'm 28 and have not been able to find any women interested. My folks expect me to be with another South Indian, but when most girls in the demo have strands of dark blue hair, ideologically, I feel out of place. And then he gave additional context. I come from an arranged marriage culture, been following you on Twitter for a while. Love the discussion. No, hey, thanks very much, JGJ. Appreciate it. This is one thing where Christian and I, we actually kind of had a bit of a dust up off camera once, because Christian was telling me verbally. But Christian was telling me, he's like, Nick, he goes, I got to tell you, I'm a little bit sick of constantly being told that I'm just not doing enough, or I'm not this, or I'm not that, when I don't think you have any concept of what it's like being a 20-something-year-old man in today's culture and environment, especially with the expectations that are being created with women. And my response is, dude, not all women are like that. He goes, okay, well, that's great. But if the supply of women who don't believe that is significantly smaller than when you were looking for a wife, then you don't have a healthy appreciation for how difficult this has gotten. Where now you have a whole bunch of women that were taught by feminism that they're going to go assert themselves by going out there and racking up a body count and doing those other things, and then finally when they figure out, and maybe they've got a kid or something like that, oh crap, that was wrong. Now I'm going to look for the guy to settle for. I'm the guy you settle for. Screw you. And I sat there and I listened. I was like, dude, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I let my pride get the better of me for at least 30 minutes and yelled back at him. But then I came to the conclusion that no, he had actually made a really good point that the number of women that have bought into this, and I speak of it this way because I do believe that a big part of the problem is that when you have teenage girls growing up in an environment where they are being told by their mentors that this is what represents true femininity and true feminine power and true feminine, individuality and all this, and you don't need no man. Obviously, they're gonna start to believe some of that. Just like you have a bunch of young men that are listening to other men right now that are probably buying some things that are gonna cause them problems later. They're going to find out that, oh, I don't have a bunch of sports cars and big houses and a bunch of supermodels in my house. I'm just a jerk, right? Just like some other, women are finding out that, oh, I'm not strong and powerful and independent. I'm lonely and I'm miserable.
I think the other thing also to point out is at the same time when people are super, not to harp on Christian or anything, but when he was upset with you for all of that, there is still the point of your swath of women that are going to fit the good criteria is also very small if you don't go where they are.
Yeah.
You have to go to the places these women exist. So if you're having a hard time finding a woman, in the club scene or in college or, in the big city or whatever, maybe you need to shift. If you're really truly looking for a woman, like a real woman, you need to go to the places where you might actually find those women. You can't go to like a pool of all, like basically a salmon farm and hope that you find a bass. It's a salmon farm. Yeah. You're not going to find a bass there. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm not sure that's what I would have used.
Well, it's the fish in the sea. It's the fish in the sea analogy, and you're not going to the sea where you could find a wide variety of women. You're in college where they're all the same.
You're in the wrong hatchery,
and you're at clubs where they're all the same, and they all have been eating the same.
No,
sludge.
but I here's what I think. Here and to JGJ's point, right? The frustrating part is that it used to be, and it wasn't that long ago, where you would meet your future wife at church or at work or in college. In fact, that became a very, very common thing for decades now, is that, you'd go off to college, you'd meet a girlfriend in college, and then you guys would get married. And I do think it's becoming more and more difficult, especially within the college scene, because let's face it, most universities now, especially, I would say especially in the West, I can't speak outside of that, but I understand the context there because although I won't be next year, I'm currently the chairman of the subcommittee on higher education. So it's not like I'm unaware of what's going on within university campuses. I can't claim to be there every day experiencing it, but I would say that I probably have more insight into what's going on within our college campuses than, say, the average 44-year-old dude that's not in college. And he's right in the sense that our universities are now set up to not just provide you a credential within a particular area of a field or subject matter expertise. They are completely bought in, like from top to bottom, completely bought in to creating a particular ideological person. They don't want just a good architect or a good doctor. They want an ideological architect or an ideological doctor. And if you find yourself in that environment where it used to be that you could find a wife, not to mention the fact that you're probably dealing with a lot of pressure from parents because that was their expectation. That was their experience, and it's not yours. But to Tina's point, I think the thing that is frustrating. So I'm not trying to suggest that it's fair or just or anything else. It's just reality. And the reality is that if you are looking for a certain type of woman or a certain type of man, you got to go to the places where you're most likely to find them. And unfortunately now it's probably not the university system, right? It's I would argue that probably 99 times out of 100, it is not the club or the bar.
You can always find
or the festival or whatever it is.
You can always find something that breaks the rule, but it, in large part, it's a pretty solid assumption that you're not going to go to the club and find a good Christian girl.
Yeah, no, and so I think it really is something where, again, I try to be more careful in acknowledging the difficulty of the situation, but the solutions are still the same. That's the problem. The solutions are still the same. And one of the things that we're going to find is that we are going to create a better society when more men learn how to be good men, not nice guys. Like I said, we're going to get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
By CVA Buck here, grew up actual nice guy, not Reddit stereotype. Life pushed me into bad boy turf. Now I'm balance of both. Have women chase me but can't get it right. Widowed on first, divorced on second, then a string of 3 to 5 year failures. Follow up. Now 42 and still want family and kids. Losing hope quick. I mean, CBA Buck. I mean, look, I can't imagine the difficulty of being widowed and what that would do to me psychologically. And so I can imagine how difficult that is in that environment and to be in this situation where you're trying to find someone. Again, the only thing I think I can say is once again, it's about understanding what you're looking for and looking in the right places. And let me give an example of this that I know a lot of people are going to instantly smirk at. but I'm not saying it is a common example. I'm not saying it's an example that's open up to, everybody or even a plurality of people. I'm just offering it as an example. And I'm not going to say church, even though that's usually my favorite example. When we went to the Homesteaders of America conference, all right, we would like Hamilton is over here like
Hamilton. I'm sorry. Can we get Hamilton to chime in on this a little? What was your view of the women that you saw at the Homesteaders Convention?
There was no point throughout the whole year of 2023 where I was surrounded by more potential spouses.
Yeah.
That's just the case. I was really busy. We were selling mugs, everything. So I didn't get a lot of time to,
But there were a lot of pretty girls that were single coming to the booth who had the right set of morals, the right kind of plans for the future.
I mean, they were confident, they were strong, they were independent, but they knew what they wanted, and they wanted a, traditional kind of man that was going to protect and provide with the baby cow, right? And so again, I realize that is not a common thing for most people. All I'm saying is that here was an example of you went into an environment with a certain culture associated with that environment, and all of a sudden there was a lot more people that you would have said, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And like Hamilton just said, it's not like Hamilton's a homesteader. No. Right? Hamilton's not a homesteader. He's not but
I think there was one gal you were actually going to try to see if you could reach out, but I don't know if you ever made that connection.
She ended up not being single.
Oh,
yeah.
Dang.
But hey, we put in the work.
Yeah.
Christian Hines, can I ask for a girlfriend for Christmas this year? Not for a $1.99 super chat. I mean, what sort of place do you think this is?
He already answered that. He said, I'm a fiscal conservative.
$2?
Oh my gosh. Hey, look, I'm not gonna totally call him out, but there's been some interest, for you, Christian. You've got to probably take the next step and, I don't know, step up and actually call the girl. Anyway, here we go. All right, let's go into this next thing. All right, so this is what I'm going to ask Tina this question, and then Tina has a question for me after we get an answer to that one. All right, so
are you really ready for my answer? This
yes.
Could go any which direction.
Why do guys get relegated to the friend zone? Why?
There are a lot of reasons a guy could get relegated to the friend zone. Some of it is if he's falling all over himself to try, overeager.
Yeah.
And
why is it overeagerness? Because for a guy, they may be thinking, wait a second, I'm just demonstrating to you that I'm really into you. So why, what's the difference?
Okay. I'm going to try to explain this, and I know it's going to sound weird, but there is something in a lot of guys that get friend zoned where it's almost like they've got the girl on a pedestal, and he almost makes it really clear to her that she'd be doing him a really big solid if she would go on a date with him.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like he's like, oh, I'm such, almost like a groupie would be, where it's like, I'm such a big fan. And it automatically puts him below her.
Yeah.
When you go to her and you're looking at her like she's this amazing, unattainable thing, she's or some almost like celebrity status because you're so interested in her or whatever, it appears like you don't have your own confidence in your own stuff together. And so it makes it appear as though you're beneath her. You're putting yourself beneath her. So some of it is you have got to, even if you don't feel that confident, you have to project the confidence, and you also can't show it. You've got to kind of keep it together and not show it if she hurts your feelings and also you can try again if it doesn't work out. And then the timing is really important. But the biggest one is she has to be physically attracted to you. Mm-hmm. And sometimes girls just, not everybody finds everybody physically attractive.
So it could be that she's just not that into you.
It could. And also, is she a girl that just got out of a bad relationship and now she's sharing all this stuff about this bad relationship with you? Well, at that point, she's not ready for another relationship, and you may be a really nice shoulder to cry on, but if you're going to try to make your move right then, you're just going to be the rebound guy.
Okay.
And you've got to let it breathe.
So let me ask you a question on that one, because it's the whole element of, and this is something that you see on kind of the manosphere shows or whatnot, where you'll see women talk about relationships are 50-50. And then the guy asks, he goes, so do you want a man that is taller than you? Yeah. Do you want a man that can defend you? Yeah. Do you want a man that makes more than you? Yeah. Do you want a man that does this? Yeah. Do you want a man that does that? Yeah. Okay. And you don't do any of those things, or and you don't have a corresponding complementary. Well, then you don't want a man that's equal to you. You want a man that's actually higher status than you. And that was the point that they were bringing it. Now we can have debate all day long about complementary components, which I think is key to a good relationship.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. And what do they call it? Hypergamy? I think that's the term for it, where women want to marry someone above their status. And so the idea is if you act over eager, you're signifying to her that you don't value yourself. You don't value yourself at a level that would be, worthy with her. And so why is she wasting her time with you?
Yeah. And can I also say, guys notoriously get friend zoned with crappy women. You really need to change what you're looking for.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of women, like if she's off dating all kinds of other men and she just keeps you sort of in her back pocket as a shoulder to cry on, she's not for you. And you could do so much better if you didn't go for somebody that was going to go get ran through by every guy that's 6'4".
All right, real quick, I got 2 comments here from earlier in the chat. This one's from Intensive Care Bear.
Oh.
She said,
Intensive Care Bear is one of our favorite people, by the way.
yeah.
Right.
She said, were you friend zoned or were you told no? There's a big difference, and people use friend zoned pretty fast and lose these days. She followed up and said, sometimes guys complain about being friend zoned, but buddy, I don't even want to be friends. Just leave me alone.
That is, you know what?
Okay.
Totally fair.
And when
totally
women are that honest, that it does the guy a huge favor. So like for women that are listening to this, don't keep a guy hanging. Okay, here is something women do, and Can
I give her a super chat?
I know.
That was awesome.
Women do this thing where they want to let a guy down easy, so she sort of strings him along because she doesn't want to hurt him.
Yeah.
And because she doesn't want to hurt him, it's like he's still sort of on the hook. Sometimes if you just cut him loose and do it like just with indifference and just go, this is not going to be a thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And that's it. And there is no chance.
Yeah.
Then you're going to do that guy a favor, because then he's not going to be running after you like some little dog with his tongue out. He'll actually be able to go and find somebody that will treat him.
No, and that's a good point. And again, we're going to get into this on part 4 where we talk about difference between nice guys and good men, because
It's going to be great.
Because this, Andrea brings up a really good point, right? Intensive Care Bear brings up a really good point here. And that's the idea is like, look, maybe you weren't friend zoned, or maybe you were friend zoned because the girl didn't have the heart to tell you this ain't ever going to happen. And maybe you should take a hint.
Yeah.
Right. That's
like,
fair.
I fell into that in high school even all the time, where it was like, I really cared about some of these people as a friend. And so then I didn't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
And but you have to just let them have their feelings hurt. Don't string them along.
Well, look, yeah, because Tina had a very, she had a way to do this in high school, and basically all the boys we had to fight in a gladiatorial tournament, and I won, and that's why she's married to me. That's not exactly what happened,
but pretty close.
But the point though is, and here's the other part of this. I think a girl being honest with a guy that like, look, this isn't going to happen. The other thing too, the girls I think have a hard time understanding is guys very, very seldom just want to be friends. If they're spending, it's one thing.
True.
When a guy is friends with a girl, we don't go and hang out. We don't, unless it's like a friend group. But if a guy is giving one girl a lot of attention, it's because he's interested. It's not because we're just gal pals, right? That's not a thing.
If we needed a friend, we'd go find another dude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what's my favorite thing about women? They're not dudes. At least that used to be true.
Well, I think one comment on this, I was talking to my brother the other day, and he's obviously of the dating age, and he had asked this girl out, and she, kind of told him that she would go out with him, and then texted him and said that she just wanted to be friends. But what I told him, I said, like, you really need to get down to what was your goal in that interaction. Was your goal to be accepted? Was it to get a girlfriend, or was it to put in the rep? And I think, for men that, are in situations where it's difficult to find a potential spouse, we have to be like, my goal and my metric of success in those interactions is, did I put in the work? Did I make the effort? And if it didn't work out, that's fine. But I did my job, what I needed to do in that moment. And if it doesn't work out on her end, fine. But I'm going to go, put in the next rep. And I think that that's okay. We got 2 super chats.
Yeah, let's go. Well, we got 3 actually. Let's do these 3 before we move on to the next question that Tina's going to ask me. Isaac Gorski says you don't have to be lonely at homesteaders only.
Very true.
Let's hope people don't start an only homesteaders. Like
Maybe they should start an only
it's
homesteaders.
like it's just women like baking.
Maybe that's an idea we just came up with.
That way, only homesteaders. Yeah, that's what it is. It's basically cottage culture, but it's women fully dressed doing stuff like caring for a child.
Although, I don't know if you've ever seen the guy cooking videos that are like, those are thirst traps.
Dude, there's some funny ones too. There's
Hold on. What is cottage culture?
cottage culture.
Core.
Cottage core. That's what it is.
that?
It's the women who it's like they're getting back to sort of roots, and it's the idea of they wear the cute little dress and they make the dough and they make
And a lot of it's those old
bread
fashioned.
and they do it all while they're all like pretty-fied with their hair curled
And it's kind of like the little like old school like
the cute
like
dresses,
corsets with the dresses.
Gotcha.
those cute
Yeah.
dresses that Nick would probably love for me to get a collection of.
I've already ordered some.
He's kidding. You
Merry
guys.
Christmas. Oh yeah, no, I'm totally kidding. Christian Hines says, let's be honest, my problem is that I have no idea how to talk to women. Christian, are you paying attention? Tina's telling you how to talk to women. So just, my gosh. But good job on upping the super chat. All right.
$4.99. Let's go.
He's getting more serious. He's good. All right. JGJ says, also thoughts on passport bros, psyop for immigration. Had my sister tell me that I should be a team player and get a girl from a homeland a green card. Here's what I would say. Here's what I would say on the whole passport bros thing. And I'm gonna admit right up front, I don't know all the ins and outs of this. Here's my understanding. So when I speak to this, I'm speaking to my understanding of what it is, not maybe what it actually is, right? I'm admitting my ignorance here. My idea of what I understand about passport bros is it's guys that go overseas to a culture in order to find a wife that will probably is more in line with what they expect out of marriage.
Traditional.
Yeah, so they're going to a place. Now listen,
Where traditional values are more trained in women.
There's a lot of bad things that can happen with respect to people traveling overseas. I mean, there are huge issues with human trafficking. There's huge issues with, whatever slave, you know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to avoid certain words so we don't get, in trouble with YouTube. But I'm excluding all of that from this. So when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about the mail order brides and stuff like that, where again, you're falling into huge areas for abuse. But if someone were to say, hey, look, I'm looking for someone that really wants to be a traditional wife, and I want to go to a culture where that exists and actually spend the time and get to, know people over there and find someone that could, and I want to go for the purpose of finding a wife. I don't personally see anything wrong with that. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense for a lot of guys who are looking for more of a traditional, marriage environment and can't find it where they're currently at because the West has convinced women that this is bad and oppressive and mean and just a tool of the patriarchy. And so, I mean, I certainly don't see anything wrong with saying, hey, I'm going to go into an environment.
There are whole dating apps meant for that.
Yeah. Again, the problem is
Right.
when this,
It could be exploited.
yeah, big time. And that's where,
But just like any dating app could be exploited as well.
that's where if you're going to do something like that, I would suggest, and you're kind of in an ideal situation, I'm assuming, right? Because I think you're going to school in the U.S., but I think that's what you mean here by give a girl from homeland a green card. It's the whole idea. Honestly, too, I kind of find the whole concept of arranged marriages, as I understand them, in India and other places, pretty fascinating. Where I think some people have this idea that what an arranged marriage is the parents pick your bride or pick your husband or whatever it is. When in reality, as I understand it, it's actually more akin toward, families play a very heavy role in the process with respect to selecting someone, but the potential groom or the potential bride can say no. And really what it is about narrowing down that field. Now, again, I'm not saying that always works well. I'm not saying that status and other issues can't come into play, which could be damaging.
Status and money.
But I do think that we have this tendency in the West to just automatically dismiss this as if it's just a horrible, archaic, idea, when in reality, there's reasons why some of this stuff was put into place that I think could actually be beneficial. I'm not advocating for it, but I just think it would be better for people to understand it before they opine on it. The Shipbuilding Observer, thank you very much for the super chat. 25, no relationships, 6 dates with only one second date. Always go out on a date, go seemingly well. We make plans for another and then ghosted. No idea where I went wrong, just left in the dark. This is part of the problem with me getting married at 19, babe.
Well,
Is that
well, that's the thing is, I think sometimes people think it went better than it did.
Okay.
And so
So how do you key in when a girl is genuinely interested as opposed to being nice?
You've got to kind of study women's facial expressions a little bit and their body language. And so sometimes there are times when guys will get, on a tangent and they're talking about something that they're really, really interested in, and they are not paying attention to whether or not she's listening or whether or not she's really that interested. And so giving verbal cues like, yeah, okay. But if she's not asking you any questions, she's not very interested in what you're talking about. And also, there are times when you could get into conversations that maybe you find really intriguing that she finds a little off-putting, or maybe you talked about things together that she maybe wishes she wouldn't have talked about, maybe opened up the book a little too much and on the first date kind of thing. I mean, I'm just saying, if there's anyone, here's the piece of advice I would give you. If there's anybody that you trust to be completely honest with you about your behavior and your personality, and whether or not you rub people the wrong way, are you abrasive in some way, or are you a little weird in some ways? And is there a way that you could tame that just a little bit to get so that somebody could get to know your heart before they get to know how weird you are? You know what I mean? Just a little bit. I mean, I'm not saying you're weird. I'm saying that we're all a little weird. And usually we reserve the weirdness for after we're a little more comfortable with each other. And so I think sit down with somebody that will tell you the truth about what's a little weird about you, or what's a little bit like, is your conversation just a little bit out in left field? Is it not something somebody would typically be interested in? Are you letting them talk too? Yeah. Are you asking them questions about themselves? And are you acting interested as well in what they're saying? And so it's the active listening and paying attention to body language. I would say if somebody's going on dates and they're not producing anything further, it could just be there could be some pretty simple fixes. Well,
I think too, guys are a little bit more direct and a little bit easier to read for other guys when it comes to whether or not we're having a good time or whatnot. Because we'll tell you, man, dude, that sucked, right? She's probably not going to say, yeah, I'm not that into you, right? She's going to ask nice and polite. The other thing too that I think it's important for men to understand with respect to male-female relationships is that women are more vulnerable in that situation. So women are by nature more vulnerable to men because of, again, the physical prowess or the physical differences between men and women. Sorry, Hollywood. And so I think it's important to understand that whereas a guy might be perfectly willing to tell you, that they don't like something or that sucks or that's stupid or you're a moron, right? A woman's not going to do that. So they're going to find more polite ways to kind of brush you off or ignore you or whatnot. And so it's important to understand that if she's not actively engaged in the conversation and excited about what you're talking about, then that's probably a good indication the date didn't go as well as you thought. The other thing I would say is that I also think modern dating is practice for divorce. I think that was how John Lovell put it once, was modern dating is practice for divorce. And really what it comes down to is the people that I see being the most successful, especially early on, are ones that know each other because there's some sort of shared interest within the environment that they're in. So again, oftentimes that's church. Sometimes it's school. Sometimes it's an occupation. That can also lead people to come to the conclusion that they like each other when in reality they just have a shared interest. And so I think there's actually a lot of value into fostering, a certain element of friendship before you're really going into the, hey, we're dating. We're on this romantic pursuit right now. I get that that's not always possible and that's not always easy. But all I can say is from what I've seen, the people that knew that they had shared interests or shared values is really the most important part. They knew they had shared values, and then it was a question of maybe doing things in groups. First, it wasn't just one-on-one, so there wasn't a lot of pressure to hold up an entire conversation or whatnot. They did stuff in groups, and then over time it was, okay, yeah, there's a genuine attraction here. Now we move on to the next level because you've already established the shared values and certain shared interests before you go out on that first date. And so now there's a much higher degree of probability that you guys are going to be, suitable toward one another. The other thing too, that I always tell people, and everyone I shouldn't say everyone, modern culture says I'm wrong on this, and I'm not. Modern culture is wrong. Sorry. If you front load the physical, you are setting yourself up for failure.
Oh yeah.
You are totally this again. This is why I hate that term. Like, well, how do you know if you're sexually compatible? Really? So let me get this straight. You spiritually, emotionally, and intellectually love someone. Like you guys are just totally vibing, absolutely love someone. You're together, and then as time grows, you have affection, then you have love, then you have like this passionate desire for one another. But you're not going to be able to figure out the physical part.
Yeah, it assumes that aspect will be perfect on the first day.
Yeah.
No.
It's so, in fact, what ends up happening is when people front load the physical, because it's actually the easiest to satisfy on some level, especially for a dude, right? What ends up happening is they ignore all the problems with the spiritual, emotional, and intellectual because, hey, I just want the dopamine hit. And so, or whatever. So the point is that
I just point out
the point is don't front load the physical. Like if you are really vibing with someone, all those other areas, you're going to take the time to figure out the physical compatibility within marriage.
Well, so in 2023, I will say, you could get to the altar, get all the way to your honeymoon, and suddenly realize you've got duplicates of the parts, and that you are not sexually compatible. So, I mean, I'm just saying.
Make sure they
they're
are
not
the actual opposite sex.
I have a question. There's been a bit of a controversy brought up in a chat about whether or not men should take advice from women when it comes to dating. And I want your opinion on this, Tina.
I saw that in the chat.
Because
I was going to address it.
I think it's a very different situation when you go to an unmarried woman for advice versus someone like yourself who's been married and has friendships with a lot of different people. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I understand why a guy in today's society wouldn't want to take advice from women, because women a lot of times will tell you they want something and it's not what they want. I mean, it is very strange, and women have a tendency to sort of back each other up and just be like, "You go, girl," and nothing can possibly be wrong with women and all of this. But then also you get women that will placate you and be like, well, you're just so wonderful. I can't imagine why a girl would be off put by anything you would do. But what I'm doing is I'm telling you, I will tell you the nitty gritty. I will tell you if you're a little weird, a woman's going to be off put by that. And I'm going to tell you if you're acting a little weird because I care about people and I don't want them to be unsuccessful. And I am a huge advocate for, look, I had things I needed to change about myself in order to become a better, a better match or a better mate to my spouse. Nick had things he needed to change about himself. They're not like massive changes, but we do slough off our rough edges for each other. We do work on becoming better communicators and things like that. And so when it comes to needing to change, I think people do need to change a lot, very often. And so this whole idea where it's like, oh, you shouldn't have to change a thing. They should love you just the way you are. That is a bunch of just bull crap.
Yeah.
So
they shouldn't just love you the way you are. You should learn how to love them properly, learn how to love each other properly and how to communicate properly. And that requires change.
So what I'm taking from this is question the advice from single women
and feminists,
and feminists, but heed the advice of married women.
Well,
okay.
I'm not saying you should heed anything that I say. I'm just trying to give you an idea as to why what I'm saying might be a little different than what you're used to.
I think it goes back to the whole idea of if you have a married woman that that you're like, all friends and stuff like that, and she's in a good, healthy, committed relationship where she's dedicated to her husband, and you're asking her advice, she's probably far more likely to, one, give you a very, very honest opinion because there's no attraction there, there's no other issue there. Two, if she's in the sort of relationship that you would like to have, then chances are she's going to give you much better advice than somebody that isn't in one of those relationships.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what it comes down to, is it's more about kind of figuring out what you want and then asking the people how they achieved it.
But I'm totally sympathetic to why a guy in today's society would be really disillusioned with anything a woman has to say. I mean, guys are really just getting the raw end of the deal right now.
All right, so we're gonna have a couple more super chats here, and then we're gonna go into Tina's question for me. The Professor Keen, me and my fiance are planning to get married next year. So do both of you have any advice or stories to help in my first time heading to the altar? Also, what is the tax situation for married couples here in Virginia? Tax situation isn't necessarily significant one way or another. Here's what I would say. I mean, my big advice is that if you guys are committed, it's the shared values and the shared fundamentals of worldview are really, really important. The other thing I would say is that it's really important when you're engaged. I'm a big believer, even though this, my daughter's married right now and they have a long engagement. I'm a big believer in shorter engagements if possible, because I think there's a higher propensity to allow the relationship to move into areas that, again, I believe should be preserved for marriage. So it depending on how long your engagement is and whatnot, I would still try to, honor, the commitments that you have to one another as far as maybe not doing certain things that you shouldn't do before you get married. The other thing too, that I would just say with the fiance, again, what Tina and I did before we got married, but it was an ongoing conversation, even though we got engaged and 2 months later we were married, and I was in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and she was in Northern California.
We planned that wedding in 6 weeks.
If you haven't done this already, one of the biggest things that I would say, and hopefully you've already had the conversation on those fundamental things that are very, very important. The biggest thing I would say is you need to start verbalizing expectations that you have for one another with respect to who's going to be, the primary breadwinner. Are you both going to work? What happens when you start having kids? Does she want to be able to stay home? Okay, well then now you're going to have to you need to plan for the fact that you need to be able to survive on one income and not create a bunch of bills and whatnot when she has kids. You need to start talking about what are the expectations with respect to cooking, with respect to cleaning, with respect to household responsibilities. Talk about all of those things, not from the standpoint of, you need to be honest about kind of what your expectations are, but you also need to be willing to listen to another perspective and potentially, shift some of those expectations or adjust. Because one of the worst things that happens to people is especially the ones that have loaded all the physical stuff first, is their relationship was really rooted in the physical connection, having fun together, going out and going on dates, and now real life starts together. And the real life is more fun. Can I just say that right off the bat? This is not something where, this is all so exciting, and now you get into the drudgery of living together. No, the living together is the fun part when you do it right. But you need to verbalize those expectations that you both have so you guys can sync up and make sure that it actually makes sense, so that when you do start living that life together, you're prepared for that. The other thing that you guys really want to start to talk about is what is your process, and you've probably already done this to some degree, but what is your process for conflict resolution when you guys disagree on something? And we actually did a video on this a while back where I was talking about different rules that Tina and I have. And one of the biggest rules Tina established right off the bat is, look, we're going to disagree. Just remember you're talking to the woman that you love. Your goal here is not to try to destroy me in a debate. It's we're trying to come to the conclusion together. So it was talk to the other person. Remember that when you have a disagreement with your spouse, you're talking to the person that you love. 2, facts matter. All right. That doesn't mean that emotions don't. It doesn't mean that perspective doesn't, but facts matter. And both of you have to be committed to that idea that, look, at the end of the day, I can understand how something might make you feel, or how, something might, chalk up a memory or something like that. But facts matter, and facts are facts. And then the third component of that is just always making sure that you guys understand that it is not about you winning the argument or her winning the argument. It's about, at the end of it, you guys have come to a conclusion about something that is beneficial to the marriage, because you're, again, in our faith, once you get married, you're one now, right? You are one unit. Obviously, you're still two people, but you're one unit, and you're trying to focus on what is best for that marriage, because ultimately that's what's going to be best for both of you as well, as long as you, again, start off with those good foundations, have that mindset. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, babe, before we move on?
I mainly get some good marriage counseling before you get married.
Yeah. With people you trust.
Yeah.
How important is that?
Really important.
Critical.
Because there are a lot of questions and there are a lot of things in people's past. We all have our bags packed for us by our parents, right? For life. Everything they taught us, everything they raised us with, informs a lot of how we see relationship later on. And so it is good to unpack some of that stuff and examine it to see what you want to keep and what you want to toss, and go, hey, my parents did this thing. I didn't really like how that worked out. Let's throw that out and not do that same thing they did. but let's also implement this other thing. So whatever it is, you can come to an agreement with before any conflict ever happens with how you're going to approach conflict. And so I do think that marriage counseling is really important because you can go back and examine what different relationships informed how you see relationship, and that's going to help you make a good plan going forward.
All right, so we got 2 more here. Isaac Gorski, thank you for the super chat. My best advice is to stop the nice guy act, be a good man, and learn to dance. YouTube it or take a class. At a class, you'll likely find a girl too. I will say that this is one of my biggest regrets is that I really don't know how to dance. Like I wish I did. It is pretty cool. And again, we're going to get to the whole nice guy versus good man. And then Molly Nichols, thank you for the super chat. Please start Freitas matchmaking on Circle. So Circle is our community
idea right there.
Circle is our community chat. We'll have to.
I have always had that like streak of matchmaker in me.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
You're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
You're pretty good at it.
Remember, we've set up a few people and they got married and they're still together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there's a few.
I give you the credit. Better
Yeah.
at that than me. All right. So your question for me, babe.
The question for you is, why are men attracted to damsels in distress? But I want to add to this question and not just say damsels in distress, but also, why are men attracted to high maintenance women?
Good question.
So here's the deal. And this is, this is kind of a shot across the bow. Cause when I was in high school, I was, I kind of had I wanted to be a hero, man. I wanted to be the knight in shining armor, and a girl who's got all of her stuff together and is confident, and whatnot. She don't need no knight, right? and so there was this idea of, I would be the guy that would come in and rescue, and I would be the guy that would protect, and I would be. And so I think those were positive instincts, but what it led to was basically getting jerked around, right? It led to this idea of you weren't showing up to save the day so much as you ended up attracted to situations. And a lot of times what you find is there can be, some pretty bad consequences to that.
Would you say that the whole hero complex for men and the needing a good challenge to domesticate for women, or like a attraction to a project for women too, they're basically two sides of the same coin. It's the masculine version of what women are doing.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's the whole idea of, because guys will say, hey, they don't want a high maintenance woman, or they don't want that. It just depends. I mean, obviously physical attraction always ranks higher with men than it does with women.
Yeah.
It's important to both, but it ranks higher with men. And so there's some things that they kind of endure as a result of that. But when a woman is good at making a man feel, capable or strong or like her hero or whatnot, she can string along a guy for a long time, because we feel needed in that environment. And we do have, I think, at least good men have a natural inclination to want to protect and provide for women. And so if a woman knows how to manipulate that correctly, well, then she can string along a good guy for a long time. Just like if a man knows how to string along a woman looking for a challenge or with daddy issues or whatnot, he can string her along a long time by making her feel special when he needs her.
So it's a ripe situation for narcissism.
Yes.
But also, can I bring this up real quick, because Damon makes a really good point. He said the women that claim to be strong, independent females are pretty much the worst.
No, I think Damon wrote it in all caps, like everything else.
No, yeah, but he's yelling at all of us.
He's yelling at all of us.
No, so he makes a really good point, though, because modern day strong, independent women, that's like a big flashing light for, I have a whole crap ton of baggage you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
Because they're lying to themselves about being strong, independent women half the time. Either that, or they have shut down a side of themselves that is necessary for good relationship.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that? On modern day, it's not strong women that are the problem. It's the independent side where they think they don't need anybody else. They're going to do everything themselves, and everything is all about number one. When that's your mindset, you can't allow anybody else to come in and come alongside you and partner with you. And you also are so self-focused that you can't be what that person needs either.
No, so I think that we do place in, when we talk about things like individual liberty and individual responsibility and not being dependent, I think there's a difference between independent and not being dependent, right? You don't want to be so dependent, like on the government or on your parents or whatever it is, to where, again, at the appropriate age, where you're totally incapable of functioning apart from someone. That's not what you want. What should be taking place in a positive relationship is there's complementary skill sets, personality types, and things like that make you better as a unit. And then you're able to function at a level that would be better. It's the whole idea of being better than the sum total of the parts. So yeah, there's things that I do better than you. There's things that you do better than me. But together, when we have an equal appreciation for what we bring to the table, and then we're also committed to the idea that the marriage is what we want to be successful because of what that means for us, what it means for our kids, what it means for society in general. That's when all of a sudden you realize that, yeah, there's a certain degree of interdependency within that thing, but it's not damaging. It's not counterproductive. And I think that the message that women have been fed is this, like, you need to be a strong, independent woman. Well, what does that mean? If it means strong in the sense that you have a good, command over your own emotions and intelligence and capability, sure. If it means independent in the sense that when necessary, you're able to act and take care of yourself independently or take care of sure. But I think it's been translated more and more that, no, you don't need a man.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, what do you mean by that? Like, do I need a woman? Right? No, I want one. Like, I want my wife, right? And it's not bad for you to want a man or want your husband.
Well, because we are each other's counterpart in various areas. And I know that when there have been situations in our past where like panic could possibly set in, something's urgent. Nick is the absolute calm in those situations. And I'm usually the one hoping that I can like be beneficial in some way, but I in no way, shape, or form am as good at that side of things as Nick is. However, when Nick has not been there, when he was deployed or anything like that, and we had situations, I still was able to step up and deal with them. I don't feel like I was as good at it as him, but it wasn't something where, like I see some women that are just like, I would never know how to do such a thing. Yeah. Like, I just call people to do that. I don't know how. I'm like, I don't have a lot of respect for that either. So to me, it's like, you should still be capable. A woman should be capable, not necessarily independent and so self-focused, but she should still be capable. I think
that's a really good distinction, because if you look at most of your life and you look at the things that bring value to life and meaning and purpose, it's not found in independence. It's actually found in relationships.
Yeah.
And now that's not to say that there aren't things that also provide purpose and meaning outside of relationship, but the vast majority, when you look back on your deathbed, what are you thinking about typically? Family, friends, and the experiences usually in conjunction with people that you cared about. Yeah. And so it's important to take that into consideration.
And just because you do find somebody and you do end up getting married and the whole deal, like there's a lot of folks in the chat that have had first marriages that didn't pan out the way they wanted them to. And a lot of times people will look at us and go, oh, well, lucky for you that you found this thing. And it's like,
gosh,
I don't like that. And the reason I don't like that is because marriage takes work. It really does. You work to get the person, you work to maintain that relationship, and you work to continue to grow as a couple. And the minute that work diminishes and you stop working on it, that's when you've failed. The marriage doesn't even have to end for you to have failed in the marriage. And that is when you no longer feel the need to uphold the other person anymore. When you no longer feel like you need to provide or do your portion for each other, and that you're not willing to pour out love to them anymore, that's when it fails.
Yeah. We got a super chat here, and then we're going to move on to our final segment. Justin Henley, thank you for the super chat. Modernity teaches women to be independent for years of their lives. Then they try to go against independence to marry and start a family. Nonsensical. No, I think that's right. Again, I think what's happening in some sense, and this is an important thing to understand, because this is not conspiratorial. It's just it's a competing worldview. So the competing worldview, especially rooted in critical theory, postmodernism, this whole idea where it puts all the emphasis on oppressor and oppressed, has labeled marriage, and specifically institutions with a husband and a wife, they've put them into this quasi category of patriarchal and put them in a negative sense, and acted like they are the enemy of a woman's freedom. And the end result is that the women that have actually tried to apply that in their life find out that it typically doesn't make them happy. And so the question then becomes, is there any sort of introspection or looking back on the actual worldview that created this vision or imagery of marriage? And a lot of times the answer is no. Like the response from the progressive side of this, or the critical theory side of this, is you've just embraced the patriarchy, or you've just embraced the oppression, as opposed to, changing the world and society into the utopia that we could all have. We could just throw out all these social norms and replace them with the ones that we're now giving you. Well, again, I would say that it's not like these ideas haven't been tried. They have been. The problem is that whenever they fail, we always get the idea of, well, that wasn't, it's the quintessence, that wasn't real socialism, right? That wasn't real strong, independent, female, whatever. Yeah. There's always some excuse for why the ideas fail. And it's usually blaming the culture that came before, the ideas that came before. And so when we look at the traditional ideas of this, I think they work. That is not to say that there aren't negative manifestations of them. And this, we get into this with the whole like toxic masculinity or toxic femininity or toxic this or toxic that. More often than not, than what we find when we look at traditional approaches to something, or we look at concepts of masculinity or femininity, what we find is a predisposition towards certain responses, attitudes, capabilities, and there's positive manifestations of them and there's negative manifestations of them. And what I've seen a lot within the whole critical theory push is the idea that no, masculinity is toxic and these traits are made up of it. And in order for women to be truly free, we have to diminish this idea of masculinity. And whenever we point out that, okay, yeah, you say that until there's a war, or you say that until, you need someone to step in. Well, we're not talking about that. Bull crap. You were talking about it 5 seconds ago. And then when we bring up obvious contradictions within your worldview, you want to pretend that you were just talking about this narrow thing over here rather than this broader concept. And I don't buy it anymore. And I think a lot of people aren't buying it anymore. And you're starting to see this rebellion, this pushback, which I think is really positive. And it's rooted in this idea that, look, no one is here sitting pretending that every marriage which claims to be traditional, or every view which claims to be traditional, is therefore accurate and good, or completely devoid of negative manifestations. But the idea is whether or not it speaks to the appropriate fundamentals. There's all kinds of negative applications of good fundamentals. All right. So that's really what we're talking about here. And I think you're right. Modernity has attempted to overthrow a lot of traditional concepts and replace them with ones rooted in critical theory, which is inherently Marxist. And that's why we say Marxism is not just an economic theory. It really is more of a comprehensive word. It is a far more comprehensive worldview than people, I think, give it credit for.
It's seeking to drive a wedge between the sexes.
Yeah.
It's making being able to have healthy, meaningful relationship with the opposite sex more and more elusive.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this last one. All right, so nice guys versus good men. And I put this specifically in the dating stage because there are things that kind of change within the nature of relationships. And this episode is largely more around this whole idea of, why do nice guys finish last? And I'm going to list out some things that I kind of associate with this whole nice guy culture versus good men culture. And my standpoint is nice guys finish last because they kind of got it coming. But I'm gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna have to explain that.
I'm gonna have to explain this based off of what I mean by a nice guy, right? Because obviously different people have different viewpoints. All right, so let me give some examples here. What I have is like 15 examples. All right, so nice guys listen, right? They're very, very good listeners, but they never assert themselves. They just kind of agree, right? Good men listen, but they don't get walked on. Which is to say that when a good man is having a discussion with a girl that he likes or whatnot, or is interested in, they're dating or whatever it is, a good man will listen to what she has to say and will attempt to understand her perspective. But he doesn't surrender on the notion that there is such a thing as right and wrong. There is such a thing as facts. There is such a thing as your perspective on those facts matters, right? The emotional component that you bring to those facts and that perspective matters, but it doesn't trump the nature of facts. And so a good man does not say, I have to give up on the truth in order to make you feel better about your reality or your truth or whatnot. Whereas a nice guy is just like, oh gosh, yeah, I'm sorry. That's your perspective. That's your truth. I need to understand that. I need to respect that. No, there's the truth.
Heck with that.
I need to be respectful of your perspective on it and have a discussion with you. But a nice guy gives up on the truth in order to make her feel better.
Yeah.
A good man insists on the truth so that they can both be better after the end of the conversation.
That's a good way to put it.
Is that fair?
I agree.
Okay, next one. Nice guys are there for you no matter what. Now, again, I'm talking about dating. Nice guys are there for you no matter what. Good men don't waste their time with unreasonable people.
Oh, yeah. And I would add to that particular one is good men spot red flags early. Mm-hmm. And that's why good men won't go for certain women. Yeah. And so if you really want to be the sort of guy that attracts a good woman, you need to spot the red flags in women.
Yeah.
And not ignore them just because she's pretty, or not ignore them just because she,
Well, and don't get physical too early. Guys fall into this all the time. They oh man, that girl's hot. It gets physical quick. And then all of a sudden, all the red flags that typically would be showing up on their radar are out the window because they're just thinking about, I wonder when she's going to get naked again.
And there's a red flag for you right there. Probably on her next Instagram post.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the thing that's another thing you can do is it's like, if you're going after these girls and you see Instagram posts and she's showing you lots and lots of cleavage all the time and her butt's angled at the camera and it's just all different angles of her like looking over her shoulder with her butt sticking out at you, you guys, come on.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to get friend zoned by this girl.
Well, that's the focus is nice
She's
guys.
Trash.
Nice guys are there for you no matter what. Good guy. This isn't. Now, I will say this. Once you're married, you do have an obligation to be there for your family.
No matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. But when you're dating, when you're first identifying whether or not this is someone that you want to make, that sort of lifelong commitment where you will have to be there for him no matter what. Yeah, you want to do some of the research up front. And if she is totally unreasonable, dude, walk away. I don't care how hot she is.
Yeah.
Right? All right.
I mean, it's crazy hot matrix, guys. Just implement the crazy hot matrix.
Tina, what if you date a girl, she has those types of photos on her Instagram, you ask her to take them down, she takes them down, is that a green flag? Or should you have just not started at all?
You probably shouldn't have started at all. However, it really depends on how that went, how that conversation went down. If you asked her to take them down and she just did it, you didn't get to the bottom of why she felt she needed those up there to begin with.
Ooh, yeah.
And so you need to do the work it takes to find out why this girl feels like she needs to show that stuff. Like, why is she marketing this?
Well,
and is it to get a guy? And so then what does that say about you if you're the guy that went for it? So there's
a
lot to think about there.
I also think this is a part where fathers play an incredibly important role in their daughters' lives. And here's what I mean by that. Women, as soon as women start to develop, right, they start to recognize that they all of a sudden have this really strange power over boys that they didn't have before.
And it is very alluring.
It's got to be tempting. Can you imagine? Yeah. Guys, I want you to imagine something for a second.
Girls love to feel pretty and they love to feel like they can get whatever guy. They would like to feel like they could get him. Even if she doesn't want him, she likes the play of being able to tug a little bit and know that she's got him on the chain.
Here's what I want. Here's what I want guys to understand. All right. So obviously when women start to develop breasts, right? That's something the guys notice very quickly in, high school and whatnot. I want you to imagine that if the way it worked for guys is that once we hit a certain age, all of a sudden our biceps just got like significantly bigger. And we were just like, oh man, all of a sudden I'm jacked. And women were like, oh my gosh, what happened? Like, and it was a relatively short period of time with no real effort on your part. It just kind of happened. And women were instantly physically attracted to you. But that would be a pretty tempting power to use for evil, right? So like understand, and this is where fathers come in, understand that when your daughters are going through this stage where now all of a sudden it's gone from they're becoming young women, right? They're going to recognize at some point, oh, wow, guys are paying a lot of attention to me. And that can be, again, obviously that is a temptation to be able to use that power to get attention or to get validation or whatnot. So if you're not providing an environment where your daughters feel very, very safe and secure, in an environment where they understand the difference between someone truly valuing them and someone just lusting after them, right? Like if they don't understand that, or if they haven't been treated to that and understand that, you're kind of setting them up for for failure. So it's just an important thing. All right, next one. Nice guys focus on communication for conflict resolution. Good men do too, but not because they have to. All right, so here's what I mean by that. Obviously, being able to talk something down and to de-escalate a situation could be important. But the nice guy does it because they have to. They're desperate. If they're not able to get themselves out of a situation.
Oh, because they're wheeling and dealing.
They're wheeling and dealing, or they're like, oh, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Oh, I'm so sorry. My bad. Right. Versus the guy that's like, hey, right, it's cool. But no, a good man, if all of a sudden the conversation goes south, the good man is able to step up, to defend, to fight, to do everything that they have to. Now, again, they will still try to be mature about a situation where it's like, look, we're not trying to look for a fight. We're not trying to do any of that. But there's certain lines you don't cross, because a good man will show you what a bad idea it was for you to do that. Whereas a nice guy just has to sit there and basically tuck his tail between his legs and figure a way to talk himself out of a situation.
You're basically saying nice guys tend to be betas.
Yes.
And so if a stronger person is there, he will try to talk himself out of the situation. Whereas a good guy, it's like he could get himself out of the situation physically if necessary, but doesn't find it necessary all the time.
Yeah. Ben says, Nick, you have parents these days dressing their kids provocatively. Yeah, you're
true.
right. And they are setting their kids up for failure. I have seen kids where, like, I've had to drop my kids off a dance or something like that, where it's like, holy crap, where was the dad, when somebody showed up to that dance? It's like, well, you just put your teenage daughter out there in an environment where you're inviting boys to look at her as nothing more than an object of lust.
I can't believe it.
And
Every single time homecoming comes around, or whatever semi-formals come around, and I'm looking at some of these dresses hanging off of these girls, barely covering up their crotch. Yeah. I'm just going, and you bought this for your daughter.
Yeah.
I can't believe you bought this for her, and you're taking pictures and you're posting it all over the internet, and you're like, oh, doesn't she look beautiful? I'm like, she looks like she's about to go down Hollywood Boulevard looking for monetary dates.
She looks like she's auditioning for OnlyFans.
Yeah, Jack D said, Nick should stop talking about dating. He grew up before internet dating was a thing. Now, you did grow up before internet dating was a thing, but I don't think the principles are the same.
They are applied in the
same way.
Look, if
telling somebody they can't talk about it because they didn't. No, there's an old-fashioned way to do this, and we're trying to tell you to get back to the old-fashioned way of doing this.
Yeah, is what it is. All right, nice guys think of ways to show you that they are thinking of you. This one's a little bit more. Nice guys think of think of ways to show you they are thinking of you. Good men make a woman feel appreciated and desired. So I want to be careful on this one. I'm not saying it's a bad thing to let a woman know that you're thinking of her, but I do think there's a difference.
All those freaking good morning texts, like, no.
Yeah, I think there's a way where you'll get like the nice guy that's like, hey, thinking of you, where it's almost like text stalking or whatever it is, versus a man who may out of the blue do something that he knows you like. So he still lets you know that he's thinking of you, but the way he does it makes you feel generally appreciated and desired.
So you don't think that good men text their girlfriend every morning with a good morning text?
I don't.
Okay, so Nick is not a good person to talk to about being responsive on text.
No,
because he is the least.
I think it's kind of silly, to be honest with you.
I think if you've established that as a dynamic, some people see some of these things like Snapchat streaks and stuff like that, and they'll show how long the streak is.
Yeah.
There's certain things, if you implement it early on, that once you stop, it's like, what happened?
Yeah.
But if you didn't start it to begin with, then you're pretty safe. So here's a good rule of thumb, just to give you an idea. Because when my parents were starting off one of their businesses, they hired a consultant to talk to them about good business practices. And one of the things they took away from it was don't ever start something that you can't continue indefinitely. And the reason why is because as soon as you stop doing that thing, their quality of service has now just degraded. Yep. And so like, let's say they walk into your shop and you take their coat and you put it on the coat hanger when they come in and when you first start. And that's just something you do when you first start. But then your business starts doing really, really well and you get really busy. And now you can't do that for everybody anymore. So you stop doing that. Well, now these people come in and they're like, well, they used to take my coat and now they don't.
You guys changed. Yeah.
And the quality of service just isn't as good as it used to be. And then they write a Yelp review. So that's the thing is, in relationship, it's kind of the same way. There's a lot of maintenance that goes into it. Don't give yourself extra work.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, again, the nice guy can't distinguish between almost like constantly keeping tabs or constantly doing things.
It's a little stalker-esque.
Versus the good man, which when he engages or when he does something special, she feels genuinely appreciated or desired or both. I think
because
both
I
those
don't
things are
think a
important.
woman wants to feel like a guy is sitting there like obsessing about her.
Yes. Yes.
It's like, contact me when you got something to actually say.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Nice guys seek out damsels in distress, right? Because that's something they can repair and make that makes them feel like wanted or needed. Good men appreciate strong women. And by strong women, again, I didn't say strong, independent women. I said strong women in the sense that women who know what they want, know what they're about, but who also, again, one of the things I really appreciate about Tina is that I had to go to war for like 9 months at a time.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't sit there and do everything. She had to run everything by herself with 3 kids. Right. And I felt confident that she would be able to do that and do it effectively. Now, when I would get home, she would immediately make me feel appreciated, desired, because it's a two-way thing. But it was the idea like she was glad that I was home and that I was there now to, again, I could protect her, I could help her and stuff like that. But it wasn't one of those, well, look what I've been doing for the last 9 months while you've been off, having fun in Iraq. It was, I'm so glad you're home and the kids are so glad to see you and, everything else. So that's the part where I'm saying a strong woman is that my presence to, fix things or to do things or whatnot, that wasn't needed for us to survive as a married couple.
One of the points of being, I think, strong is, I'll explain it this way. When Nick would call, it would be hardly ever when he was deployed. If he could get on a satellite phone to get a call out, it was extremely rare. When we were on the call, I tried to make sure he knew that we all loved and missed him. And I tried to encourage him in what he was doing and not weigh him down with all the mundane things that I was having to face every 5 minutes. Like, oh, the kids were crying and I can't do, this was happening and blah, things that he can't do anything about. If he can't do anything about it, why would I burden his mind with it right now in the tiny little time that we have to talk? Instead, I wanted to use that time to encourage him and to go out and continue the job he was doing. And so in my mind, like Damon, when we were talking about strong women, in my mind, that is a strong woman, a woman who can take on those challenges and not burden somebody else with it. And she has the awareness to be able to recognize that she doesn't need to boo-hoo all over everybody all the time.
Well, when I was away, Tina stepped up in order to accomplish roles that would traditionally have been played by me. But when I got home, she would go back into the position of allowing me to do the roles that I was doing. And so again, there was a very strong respect and appreciation for that from my perspective. Okay, nice guys avoid conflict. Good men care enough to get to the bottom of the issue. And here's what I mean by that.
Tell her she's right.
Yeah.
Tell her she's right.
The nice guy doesn't want to have the conversation about the thing that could cause her to leave or not pay attention or to get angry. The good man recognizes that if this is someone you're going to potentially spend the rest of your life with, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be issues and you need to find ways to actually get through them. And so the good man recognizes right off the bat, hey, we need to, if this is something that's a problem, we need to get to the bottom of it because it isn't good for us to, unresolved conflict leads to bitterness and resentment.
Yeah, you don't want it festering under the surface.
Yeah. And so
you have to be able to confront hard things together and not just yield and go, oh, well, I'm just going to happy wife, happy life.
yeah, that's crap. If you're doing that in your dating life, do not marry that woman.
No.
And by the way, this is twofold, because if a woman behaves that way, it's like nothing, I'm fine, whatever. Look, there's a little bit of that where a woman doesn't want to have to constantly tell you what she needs. She wants you to be observant enough to be able to understand it on some level. But there's a reasonable quotient here, right? So there's a woman saying that, yeah, you should understand that you don't do stupid things, or that you should pick up on what somebody likes over time to be able to, appreciate them and show that you care. Then there's other things where it's totally unreasonable for you to assume that I would know what's bothering you right now. If I've been gone all day working and I come home and you're upset, there's no reasonable why I would know why you're upset. If it's like nothing, no. And a good man in that moment will say, look, I can see that something's wrong. And if there's something I can do about it, I want to, because I care about you, but you're going to need to tell me what it is. If she's willing to say, well, this is what's going on, and talk with you about it, especially if it's something with you, great. If she's not, then at some point that should signify a big red flag to you that this is someone that wants to play games, or it's someone that cannot effectively communicate, and we're either going to figure this out or we're not. But the way it's not going to be figured out is by saying, oh, well, the dating equivalent of happy wife, happy life, right? Oh, well, happy girl, I just don't want to upset her. She's going to blow up, or she's going to be this, so I don't want to do it. So I'm just going to, no.
And on the other side of this, women, we all need that friend that is going to give us a sanity check. There are times when maybe I'm hormonal or whatever, and I can just kind of go, I kind of can't even stand myself right now. Like maybe I'm being unreasonable. And I feel like a lot of women don't ask themselves that question. Am I being unreasonable?
Yeah.
And I don't know why. And maybe they'll kind of come back like, maybe I'm being unreasonable. No, I'm not. I'm just a wonderful woman.
You go, girl. You go, slay queen.
Yeah. And then they get their friends all around them to like boost their ego and talk about why he's bad and he's just totally wrong and blah, blah, blah. You need a friend that won't do that to you, because that friend is trying to avoid an uncomfortable conversation where she has to tell you you're kind of bat crap crazy right now. And you need a friend that's willing to tell you, that is a good enough friend that's willing to tell you you're being a little crazy.
Well, Patrick,
and then what do you do with it once you are being a little crazy? Recognize you're being a little crazy and change it.
Yeah.
Like fix it.
Patrick Bet David talked about this a little bit on Valuetainment, where he was talking about he get into conflict with his wife. And this is like early on in their marriage. And she would go talk to, her 5 friends. And he finally said, who are the 5 people you talk to? Right? Who are the 5 people you talk to when you have an issue with me? And what do they say? And what the conclusion they came to is they all validated whatever her concerns or problems or anger was. And the 5 people he talked to all told him, oh, don't be a dumbass, right? Like, look, man, she's the best thing that ever happened to you. Like, hey, get your crap. I understand. He goes, you can't make the 5 people, like, you have to pick the 5 people that you talk to, people that want us to succeed. And again, he's not talking about like an abusive relationship or something like that, where somebody's going to say, oh, go back no matter how bad the beat. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about when you have the disagreements that tend to take place within a marriage, are you talking to people that want your marriage to succeed? Or are you talking to people that are just going to validate whatever you want to hear?
Or are they just on Team Nick or Team Tina? There is no Team Nick. There is no Team Tina.
No.
It is Team Us.
Yeah.
And if you have friends that are just on one team, that's problematic.
Yeah.
Don't talk to them about your relationship if they're only on one team.
Yeah.
If you're going to talk about your relationship, and which I'm not a huge fan of going and boo-hooing to people about whatever little disagreement you had yesterday. But if you really need to talk to somebody, make sure you're talking to somebody who has both of you in mind and loves you both. Yeah. For sure.
All right. Nice guys accept, this kind of goes with the whole avoid conflict. Nice guys accept blame no matter what. Good men admit when they're wrong. Now, this is something where, again, I did a video on this
it's only happened
Can I
once
ask
or
for
twice for you.
clarification?
Yeah.
Accepting blame is different than accepting responsibility, right?
Well, no,
Not really.
you could be wrong. Like accepting that, like if you get blamed for doing something that you did, then you accept the blame and you accept responsibility to fix it,
right,
and accept responsibility for what you did. So it might be a nicer term to use, but I don't want to. I don't want to go to the idea that, well, you shouldn't blame someone. Were they wrong?
We are in a blame culture, though. Like right now, everybody wants to find out who's to blame for what.
Well,
and so,
but here's what I'll say: it's nice guys accept blame no matter what, right? They just.
I see.
They've been kind of taught to just accept.
It's my fault.
If something's wrong, well, then what did they do wrong? What could they have done better? What could I have done better? And look, there's always something to be said for introspection.
Yeah, because I agree with that right there.
There's always there's something to be said for introspection, which is to say, could I have handled this better?
Yeah.
That's very different from assuming, all the responsibility for a problem or an issue.
Yeah.
And that's why I say good men admit when they're wrong. Like we've had situations before where I've had to go back to Tina and be like, I was wrong and you were, and that's the other part too.
Like once or twice.
A good man doesn't just say, like, acknowledge to themselves that they were wrong. You got to go up to the person that you were wrong to and be like, I was wrong. You were right. I apologize. I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
Or
sometimes you just completely misunderstand each other and you're both wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Nice guys believe in a 50-50. Oh, here we go. Ready to make some people mad?
Yeah.
Nice guys believe in a 50-50 relationship. Good men lead their families. So again, this kind of goes beyond the whole dating side into what does it mean to be a man? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you are looking to be a man in a relationship, you better be willing to lead your family. If you think that this is the 50-50 means something with respect to the value of the human beings involved. I'm not more valuable than Tina. Tina's not more valuable than me, right? And when we are both necessary for our marriage to reach optimal status. Okay, but I do have a leadership role to play. And if you are dating someone that doesn't believe that the man needs to play a leadership role, I'm going to tell you right now, I think you're going to have problems. And the way I expressed this to somebody once who wasn't necessarily keen on this, I said, if you believe marriage is for life, better or for worse, sickness and health, then at some point there's going to come a time where you don't agree on something. Who's responsible for making the decision at that point? So people have this idea in their mind that leadership is I'm the boss. No, this is, at least in our faith.
You're not a tyrant.
In our faith, what it is I have responsibilities associated with servant leadership, which is to say that my role as a leader within our marriage and within our family is I have to put her well-being and our children's well-being above my well-being. And what that means in our faith is up to and including my life for theirs. If we're ever in a situation where one of us has got to run into the burning building, it's me. Right? If we ever got to get a situation where one of us doesn't get the life raft, it's me. That's the sort of leadership I'm talking about. And I believe that is a role that men have to adopt and assume, not just because it's their responsibility, because it's actually better for their marriages and their families.
And I think that women feel safe in that situation. And I know like safety is very, very important to women. It's one of the reasons why they want to be strong, independent women and deal with provide for themselves and provide for their own safety and things like that, is because safety is so important. If the man can provide that, and it's a truly safe environment, not just physically safe, but emotionally safe, mentally safe, like you are in the hands of somebody who loves you and puts you before them, that is safety. And there's a lot of freedom that comes in that that you will reap the benefits of in a lot of different areas of your marriage, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Do you think it's more accurate to say that it's 100-100 rather than 50-50?
Gosh, I hate all that stuff on there. I think what it is I don't know that there's a proper numerical. I don't think that the numbers is the proper way to look at it. I think when you look at it, and the value that she brings, I think, is equal to the value that I bring, but it is different. And so you embrace the difference because the difference is what actually gives you compatibility.
Well, and we're both in this. We're not reserving anything. So the idea of 50-50 is almost like you're reserving 50%.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're not reserving anything. We're both all in.
Yeah.
And I feel like you have to both be all in. We burn the ships. There's no way out. We're all in. This works or it doesn't. I'd rather it work. So let's do the work to make it work.
Yeah. All right. Nice guys make you feel safe around them. Good men make you feel safe anywhere. Thoughts?
Oh, yeah. So say it one more time. Nice guys.
Nice guys make you feel safe around them. Good men make you feel safe anywhere. Here's what I mean by that. You will see, and maybe I should also say,
yeah, that doesn't really fit for me. I
I
don't
think
think that
I think it's the
women
emotional-
feel that safe around nice guys because nice guys tend to be more betas.
think about what I'm talking about. A woman
Don't
feels
be so nuanced. Get it
a
out.
woman feels safe around a nice guy because they don't pose any threat to them
Okay.
or anybody else.
Or anybody
A good
else.
man
Okay.
makes you feel safe anywhere you're at with them because they don't pose a threat to you, but they can pose a threat to anybody else.
Okay, that makes better sense. Yeah. It's the same reason why women sometimes will go for that bad guy because he shows himself to be strong in a civilized society, right? He bucks the system or whatever, and he's strong enough to do that kind of stuff. Well, in a good man, he's also strong, but he puts it to use in a different way.
How about this? Nice guys are unthreatening to women. Good men pose a threat to anybody that would be harmful to their woman.
Sure.
And I use the possessive there, so somebody's going to get mad at me. But it's the whole idea that no, a good man is a threat, is dangerous, just not to you.
Yeah. But ultimately, like some of this too is the whole like nice guys finishing last or good guys finishing last. There's so much more to this than just this. It's like I have a little bit of a hard time with the way some of this is being couched. Only because I feel like a lot of guys, there are a lot of good guys that they're making one mistake and they're going after the wrong women, and that's why they're finishing last. But if we're just comparing, oh, this is the nice guy that's been, watered down and emasculated by feminism, then okay, I get what you're saying then.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna go down to this one. Nice guys are threatened by other guys. Good men are confident that their woman is loyal to them. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean loyal in the sense that because loyalty is not just manifested in your girlfriend not cheating on you, right? Just like loyalty for men is not manifested in a man just not cheating on you. It's not just infidelity with respect to a relationship. A nice guy feels constantly threatened and jealous with respect to a woman. A good man is confident in her loyalty to him. So let me give you, for instance, if you go out with the girls, I don't need you texting me every 5 minutes about where you are, not simply because I trust you, but because I know you well enough to know that you don't put yourself in situations where it would cause me concern or worry.
Yeah, but I also think that right there also stems from who you chose.
Well, all of this is that.
It has a lot to do with the guy and how he handles things. But if you chose somebody that would do that kind of thing,
I see what you're saying.
then it doesn't matter if you're a good guy who trusts someone. She's still going to do what she's hardwired to do because you chose her.
Yeah.
You chose the girl that's on Instagram showing her butt all over the place.
So what I'm gathering from this is part of being a strong man is choosing the right woman because the right woman allows you to serve that role.
Recognize the red flags, recognize the green flags, and like you got to choose somebody that isn't these other things. And if she is, and you realize it, and before things, before you're married, run. You're not going to fix it.
Yeah.
You're not. Just like she's not going to fix the bad guy,
Yeah.
you're not going to fix the bad girl. And
No.
it's just not going to happen. You can't save her. She's going to have to run her course and like find her third virginity somewhere with like some guy that is on his like fifth divorce.
Well, look, here's the other thing I will say. Because I am also I'm a big believer in trying to do things as right as possible up front. And I certainly don't claim that I've made every single right decision in my life. I haven't. There's tons of things I can go back. I love it when somebody says, I have no regrets. Like, what are you, a moron? Like, you did nothing wrong? You did nothing you wish you would have done better? I'm not talking about regret in the sense that you just like brood over it all the time. But I think everyone can recognize that, there's certain areas I could have made better decisions. And a lot of what we talk about has to do with having, some lived experience within these areas, and now watching as some of those values that we transferred over to our kids are playing out and helping them make decisions that were even better than the decisions we made when they were their age.
Yeah.
And that's really encouraging to see. But at the same token, I'm also a big believer in redemption. But the whole idea of redemption is about understanding what screwed things up in the first place. One of the most frustrating things I see, one of the most frustrating things I see coming out of parents' mouths when it comes to, their kids are now going through this stage of dating and identifying things, and how do you set your kids up for success to avoid some of the pain that you experience. We will talk about rules that we've set in place for our kids, and we will have people say, oh, well, was that a rule when you were growing up? No. Well, does that make you hypocritical? No, it makes me not an idiot. Like I know what happened wrong, and I'm using that knowledge in order to prevent other mistakes. And again, like I've said before, I'm fine with my kids getting bruises. I'm trying to avoid them getting scars, right? It's not that we shelter our kids so much that they can't go out there and make mistakes and learn and whatnot. But yeah, I'm trying to shelter them from things that are going to actually have lifelong consequences for their actions, because they're not in an age appropriate enough to be able to understand the nature of those consequences or what causes them. And so we utilize that understanding and those successes and those mistakes in order to set, our own children up for success.
Yeah, there is nothing in the rule book that says that you need to repeat the mistakes your parents made.
Yeah. Or you made. And that's one. I once put it this way, like, I'm not trying to make my kids the best version of me. I'm trying to set my kids up for success to be the best version of what God has intended for them to be. Right. And some of that is utilizing, your own mistakes or your own experiences to say, yeah, hey, I did this, I would have done this differently. This is why, and explaining that. So when we go through this whole idea of like, okay, how does a guy, why do nice guys finish last? Well, again, we've given you the version of nice guy we're talking about is not a guy that's just kind or has, a high EQ or whatnot, or understands there's one. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the nice guy that essentially is so docile and so uncertain of themselves and so needy that, yeah, they don't pose any threat to a woman necessarily, right? They're not necessarily a source of physical or emotional or mental abuse, but they also don't have anything appealing to a woman. And so a woman that identifies somebody that meets all those traits, where it's like, okay, you're nice, you're friendly, but there's nothing about you that actually invokes a sense of the ability to protect, provide, or it invokes any sense of passion. Well, if you're that guy, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be surprised when a woman doesn't want you, because regardless of what modernity has told women, and regardless of what modernity is increasingly telling men, women want strong men. And to a point that Brian Betts brought up on this, strong doesn't mean I'm constantly puffing out my chest and showing what a danger I am to the world. And no, it's subtle, but it's there. And some of the things we talked about were, again, good men listen, but they don't get walked all over. Right? Good men don't waste their time with unreasonable people. Good men will use communication to try to resolve, a situation and de-escalate a potentially violent situation. But if violence is required, they are fully capable of meting it out when needed in the protection of someone or something that they love. Good men make a woman feel appreciated and desired. Right? It's not about texting every 5 seconds or basically using her to fill your validation. You're really thinking about it in a way to make her feel, again, appreciated and desired. Good men appreciate strong women. And again, when we talk about strong women, we're talking about capable women. We're not talking about this modern version of strong and independent, and I don't need no man. It's more of, no, we appreciate an emotionally stable woman who can step up, but also a woman who also appreciates our ability and our desire to provide and protect. Like she doesn't find that as a insult or a threat to her own independence or strength. She actually recognizes the full potential of her own strength and also recognizing and appreciating ours. And we do the same. Right? Good men care enough to get the bottom of an issue. Right? If you're the sort of guy that just says, well, I don't want to make my girlfriend mad because she's going to lose her mind. Well, if that's the case, one of two things is happening. Either you don't have the guts to actually step up and figure out what the deal is and actually show a little interest into what's bothering her, or two, she's crazy. And in either one of those cases, you're either not mature enough to be in a relationship or she's crazy and you shouldn't be in a relationship, right? So a good man gets to the bottom of stuff and he listens and he's willing to understand and he's willing to communicate and he's willing to admit that he's wrong, right? That's the other part in here. Good men are willing to admit when they're wrong and actually fess up to it and verbalize it. I was wrong. You were right. I apologize. I won't do that again, or I'm going to improve on that, or I'm going to fix that, or whatever it is. right? But verbalizing that adds an incredible degree of validation. And one of the reasons why I think it's so important for men to be willing to do that and do that in a way that is genuine. I don't tell Tina I'm wrong if I don't think I'm wrong. Right. And we've had discussions before where she was pretty sure I was wrong. I was pretty sure she was wrong. Usually what we find out is that both of us were wrong in certain aspects or respects. Right. And we've got to, but we fess up to that. But again, I don't say I'm wrong just to end an argument, because then the argument hasn't ended, because she knows I'm just placating her. And now I'm treating her like a child. Right. And I've basically said, this isn't worth my time. There's one of the reasons why they say that a marriage is in danger, not when you're fighting, it's in danger when you stop fighting and the issues are still there. A good man gets to the bottom of it.
I'm so cutting a reel with what you just said, because I think there are so many men my age who are about to get married and don't have that mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to point out a comment that Karen Hamilton just made. Good men don't fall into the trap or false advertising of porn.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That is that falls under the faithful category. If you are faithful to your wife, you're not looking at porn.
Yeah.
And that starts while you're a bachelor.
Yeah.
If you start a habit of looking at porn when you're a bachelor and you think getting married is going to fix that, it's not. I've seen marriages fail over porn addiction that was a holdover from when the person was a teen.
Yeah.
And so if you're into that kind of thing, you need to nip it in the bud and reject it. You've got to nip it in the bud, or you will not be able to be what your wife needs.
Yeah.
You cannot provide her the safety she needs while you're looking at that. It's cheating. So.
Yeah. All right, and then a couple of the other things we talked about is then, again, a good man is making their wife feel safe, both with them, but also from outside threats, right? Again, and that's what we differentiated with the nice guy. The nice guy, she may feel safe around the nice guy because the nice guy isn't a threat, but she doesn't feel like the nice guy can protect him. A good man is someone she feels safe around because he's capable of protecting her, and that is an important distinction. And so again, the whole point of this was just to try to put a greater specificity to some of these questions and some of these terms that get thrown around a lot. So we've provided some context for what we mean when we talk about these things. Now, somebody else might have a different context, and so they might look at what we're talking about and getting offended about it. And if they get really offended, well, maybe you're a nice guy and you didn't man up. But anyway, the point is that there are distinctions here. And there's a lot of men in the chats right now that's saying, all this is irrelevant if you can't find a woman that appreciates it. And this is, again, this is what I will say. I am fully willing to acknowledge that feminist culture on the whole today, I think devalues these traits verbally. What's interesting is how much they still want them to be actually manifested in a man. There's a reason why you have all these things where we talk about where there's liberal women who prefer to date conservative men. There's been studies on it. There was a recent report that came out of New York where it was talking about like kind of high powered, or we might call high value women in the sense of they make a lot of money, they're CEOs, all this stuff. They don't want to date leftist men, right? They want to date men. They end up dating men that are more conservative because those men are strong and confident, and they display those attributes that they want. So what I'm saying here is, it is going to require men to step up into their role, regardless of what culture is telling them and regardless of what trying to incentivize or disincentivize. And for some men, what that's going to mean, that's why when the whole issue of the passport bros came up, right? Like I have a lot of issues with this whole, how a lot of that stuff gets manipulated for human trafficking and abusive situations. But for the guy that says, no, I just genuinely want to try to, like I've tried in my own culture. I can't find a wife that wants the same things I want. And so I'm going to invest the time, not just show up, not just go to a website. I'm actually going to invest the time in trying to find a wife from a culture that is still, that still values those sort of things that I would like in a wife, and that teaches women to, and again, it's not just teaches women as the society is teaching them. It's the women in that country value the things that I'm going to bring to the table. I understand why they're doing that. Like, I get it. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's any magic button that anyone's going to push where men are going to, okay, I don't have to be all these things right here in order to correct this. Like, no, we still do. We still have to strive for that. And I think what's going to end up happening is that over time, women are going to come back around to responding to that in the way that
I agree.
that we would like, in the way that we appreciate. But if it's one of those things where it's like, well, screw that, I'm not going to do it, and they're going to see what they're missing, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to correct the situation. And we can say that sucks. We can say whatever else, but I think that's the truth. And so that's why I think there needs to be an emphasis on, once again, men realizing that your job is not to be the nice guy, as we've described here. Your job is to be the good man. And good men do, I believe, inevitably attract good women, especially if you're putting yourselves into those situations where the good women that you're looking for actually exist. And it's probably not the club. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, it's not in a lot of our university departments now. But they're still out there. All right, we got a couple more.
I have to ask one question before I forget it. Tina, do you think that strong men take the hot crazy matrix into account when dating?
I don't know that they have the awareness to actually do that, but I do think that they do what you would call like thin slicing in their head. I think they do, when they look at a situation and they can kind of dismantle it in their head very quickly and decide cost-benefit analysis, they kind of do that, I think, to some degree. But here's the problem is good man, bad man, or indifferent, men are very, very driven by what they see. And it is women, they have the power of boobs and that type of thing. And they will use them. And so even a good guy can totally be lured in by a woman who he should not be going for because her assets are very attractive to him. And sometimes his brain, like maybe the blood is leaving his brain and going somewhere else and not helping him think clearly. But I don't think that, I think every guy should guard against that type of thing.
Yeah. All right.
That was a good answer, too.
All right. We got a couple final super chats here. David Harold, thank you again. I spent several years wasting my time being a nice guy and finally got married when I became a good man. Yeah, I get it. Like I will say through high school, I was, again, I try to be nice. Tina always hates it when I say it this way, but I will say this much. I played it a lot more cool with Tina than I did any other girl I had been interested in high school. Because I was like, I suck at this. Like, I am not good at this. I would watch guys, some of them were buddies of mine, who just treated women horribly, treated girls horribly.
Yeah.
And dude, cleaning house.
Girls
they were
all over him.
We're not mentioning any names. We're not mentioning any names. But yeah, and girls are just all over this dude. I'm sitting here going, what the hell? So for anybody that thinks like, Nick, you're 40s, you have no idea what it's like now. I still remember thinking, how is it that this other dude is getting away with this crap? Right. And so I remember my senior year, I'm like, forget this. Right. Like, so I started, I started realize, okay, I'm interested in Tina. She seems to be kind of interested in me. I'm like, no, forget this. I'm playing it cool this time. I'm be like, yeah, I'm going to the Army. I'm leaving from Fort Benning, Georgia. We had been dating for like probably about 6 months. He hadn't told
me he loved me yet.
Hadn't told I loved her yet. We've been dating for about 6 months. Knew I loved her, but I wasn't saying that. I wasn't saying nothing. And then I'm going off to basic training. And I'm like, I'm going to go off to basic training. She's way too hot for me. Like, this is, as soon as I'm like out of the picture for an extended period of time, she's gone. And so right before I leave for basic training, I'm like, look, I'm going to be in basic training. Clearly, I'm not going to be dating anyone. Right?
You make it sound like you acted so aloof with me, but you really
I didn't
weren't.
act that aloof.
Okay.
But what I did was I said, no, I was still affectionate. You know, I liked you and the whole deal. But at that point I said,
but he
look,
wasn't obsessing.
I said, look, I'm going to be gone for 3 months, right? For basic training. Like, I'm clearly not going to be dating anyone at, in Fort Benning, Georgia, going through infantry school. If you want to date someone else during this time, that's up to you. And she was actually very mad I said that.
I was offended.
She was offended that I said that.
Yeah.
But then when I left for basic training, I remember like instantly thinking, holy crap, if she actually does date somebody else, I'm going to be devastated. But it was that, nope, I'm not doing you're not going to stick with me through basic training, because I didn't want her sticking with me through basic training just because she was a good person. I wanted her to do it because she really wanted to do it. Like, that's what she wanted. And she wrote me every single day of basic training. Every single day of basic training.
I did.
All right. Here we go. Isaac Gorski, too long, didn't read, threaten women, got it. That was probably in reference to our conversation about, that's not what we were going for, Isaac, but thank you. And then Jesse Zimmon said, hey, Nick, a bit cheap with the super chat, but what do I do if I'm not very talkative? Greetings from South Africa. No. Hey, Jesse, thank you very much. Really appreciate the super chat. What do you do if you're not very talkative? So obviously I'm a fairly talkative guy. So I don't want to pretend like I share that perspective. What I will say though is that I'm more of a talkative person, and I found someone that appreciated that. I think there's other women that appreciate
Sometimes people that are not very talkative really like someone who is talkative, and the reason why is because that way they don't have to think up what to say. And so I would say probably figure out why you're not talkative, because if it's because you're nervous about saying something wrong, maybe you could put in some work on that. If it's just because you're kind of stoic and you don't have a whole lot to say, you'll still need to find a way to let somebody into your mind. And so sometimes when you're not talkative, you don't give up a lot of information. So it's hard for somebody to fall in love with someone they don't know. And if you're not talking to them, it's hard for them to know you. And so I think there is a little, even if you don't have to talk about nothing and stupid things, you don't have to talk about a bunch of like meaningless garbage. But when it comes to having conversations that really matter and asking questions about your life and your point of view on things, those are things that do matter, and you will have to figure out a way to open up so somebody can get to know your mind.
The other thing I would say too is that this goes back to the whole, we use that term opposites attract a lot. And there's obviously an element of truth to that, but I think it's also kind of capabilities which complement one another attract. And so one of the things that I've noticed in my marriage with Tina is obviously there's shared values, there's other things that we have in common, but there's a lot of other things too where the capability shift is complementary. If we all had the same capabilities, we wouldn't be adding additional value to the relationship. The fact that we have different capabilities and that we appreciate each other for those different capabilities that they bring that you don't bring is valuable. You may find someone, it may be, so to the point with talking a lot, if you're not super talkative, but you're actually really, really good at listening, and the feedback that you provide, you're still listening, you're still processing the information, and the feedback that you provide may not, may not take a lot of words for you to explain, but it's still valuable and demonstrate that you are thinking about it. You might find someone that does like to talk a lot and loves the fact that you're really good at listening. If you are, right? There's some people that don't talk a lot and they're not good at listening, right? I would say that you're probably going to have to get better at one if you're not good at either. But there's something to be said for someone that can just sit there and listen to a woman talk about the things that are on her mind and maybe provide feedback or insight when it's valuable, but otherwise is perfectly capable and enjoys listening to them talk about their day and what they went through. And believe me, that's something that can be incredibly attractive for a woman. I think if there's one thing I could think of right off the bat that Tina wishes I was better at, and she's absolutely right, it is the ability to just sit there and listen with the intention of understanding instead of trying to jump ahead to, okay, what's the point of this? What do you need me to do? It's because my mind is kind of constantly racing. And so I have to do a much better job sometimes of just sitting there and being like, okay, I'm going to stop everything I'm doing and I'm going to provide undivided attention just with the purpose of understanding. Yeah. That can be difficult for me to do. And maybe it's something that's easier for you to do. And what ends up happening is you find somebody that maybe they're really, really good at talking and expressing things in a way that you appreciate when you're in social situations. They take care of the person that wants to have the chit chat. And they really appreciate your ability to sit there and listen and understand and not have to, fill up the silence.
There's a thoughtfulness in being somebody that uses few words.
Yeah.
Because I have some friends who aren't very talkative, but they are some of the funniest people I know, because when they do actually have something to say,
Yeah.
it's usually really on point. I've got one friend who's a scientist, and she has the best sense of humor.
Yeah.
And when she explains something in her field, she's amazing at explaining it. But she's not. She doesn't just use up the space.
I think it also depends on like who you're around.
Yeah.
Like around certain people, I'm a talkative person. Around other people, I don't shut up.
Yeah.
So I think it's also about finding a good person that you vibe with and mesh with.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I think we've gone through everything. I hope we've answered all the super chats. I want to appreciate all the participation, both in the super chats and just in the community chat.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. Also, hey, consider jumping on Circle. That's our community chat area. We'll put in there. We're getting, it's really grown over the last couple of months, which is great to see. But yeah, just really appreciate everyone's participation. Also, two more little things to let you guys all know about. One, we did finally open up our own shop. So for anybody that is looking for quality mug swag, we now have that on the very appropriately named onlymugs.com. So if you go to our Instagram or you go on YouTube, we'll also put it on there. Actually, we got it on the screen right now with our tread around and find out. But we've also got a lot of our other little quippy mugs. If you follow us on our social media, and you see kind of my little
Good
smart
pricing
alecky.
too. We've tried really hard on the pricing side of this.
Yeah, we went with American producers and whatnot. So again, hope you guys enjoy that. Also, want to once again give a plug for Good Ranchers, goodranchers.com. Again, some really good new deals. You're gonna get a cut off of your order if you use promo code Nick, and they are offering that free. It's the free ham with the subscription, right?
That's correct.
Free ham with the subscription. And again, this is not the $20 ham you're picking up.
I need to give a quick note to that. If you order before December 11th, the ham will arrive before Christmas.
Oh, there you go. Before December 11th, it will arrive before Christmas. And this is going to be like that quality smoked ham. I honestly never really knew the difference. And then many years ago, we had a local place here that did like the Virginia's, they did Virginia salt smoked hams.
Yeah.
And I remember going in there going, gosh, this seems a lot more.
Feels like a $60 ham.
Yeah, what's the deal? And then I had it and it was like, holy crap, where has this been all my life? Like there is a difference. And again, they're going to throw it in for free, like $100 value ham for free. So that's a pretty big deal. Use promo code Nick and then check out goodranchers.com. Again, a great way to support us is to support the people that advertise through us. Not to mention that I think we have, I think we're in the top 10% of wittiest ad transitions.
For sure. 100%.
On the internet.
Oh, yeah.
In a survey,
Especially when I'm in control of the episode.
in a survey that was conducted by me 5 seconds ago, I came up with that statistic.
Accurate.
So it must
Accurate.
be true. So once again, thank you all very much for joining us. We hope this was helpful. Run over to the community chat to give us ideas for episodes you would like to see in the future. We might do a couple relationship ones just because Christian's gone and he just hates it when we do the relationship ones. But we are waiting for him to get back. We are waiting for the master of history, Christian Hines, to be able to return. We keep trying out all these names.
Master of Doom.
One of them's going to stick. Yeah. Coming back because we got some other issues that we want to talk about. A lot of exciting content coming up in the next month. Plus, we'll probably be sharing with you guys some more about some plans for 2024 that we're pretty excited about. Yeah. So go check out the shop at onlymugs.com. You can also look at treadaroundandfindout.com. .com. And then also check out Good Ranchers as well. Once again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next episode.